In the middle of Marchands, where a single dinner cost more than most people earned in a week, a 6-year-old girl sat alone at a table meant for 8, her small shoulders shaking with sobs that echoed off marble walls and crystal chandeliers. Lily Chen's untouched filet mignon grew cold on bone china. Her sparkling water sat ignored in a glass worth more than some families' monthly grocery bills. The other diners, women dripping in diamonds, men in custom suits, tried not to stare. But they did. Everyone did. 2 bodyguards stood nearby, stiff as statues in their black suits and earpieces, faces blank as they watched the little girl fall apart. They didn't move to comfort her. Didn't kneel down. Didn't even try. A woman in a fur coat leaned toward her companion, whispering just loud enough to carry. "That's Vincent Chen's daughter. Where are her parents?" Nora Bennett had been on her feet for 11 hours. Her lower back ached. Her feet screamed inside her worn flats. She'd been carrying trays, refilling wine glasses, smiling through condescending comments from people who wouldn't remember her face 5 minutes after leaving. But when she heard that child crying, something in her chest twisted tight. She set down her tray and walked toward the table, ignoring the sharp look from her manager across the room. The bodyguard straightened as she approached, hands moving slightly toward their jackets. Nora ignored them too. She knelt beside Lily's chair, bringing herself to the little girl's eye level, and spoke softly. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" Lily's crying hitched. She looked up with red, swollen eyes that had seen too much loneliness for someone so small. Her lip trembled. One of the bodyguards stepped forward, voice low and firm. "Miss, please don't." But Nora reached out, gently touching Lily's hand. The contact made the little girl flinch, then still. Like she'd forgotten what kindness felt like. "It's okay," Nora whispered. "You can tell me." Lily's voice came out broken, raw with a grief no child should carry. "I want my mommy." The restaurant went quiet. Forks stopped mid-air. Conversations died. Even the soft classical music seemed to fade into nothing. Nora's heart shattered. She glanced at the bodyguards, these grown men who protected this child's body but had no idea how to protect her heart. Then she looked back at Lily, at this little girl drowning in a sea of wealth and dying of emotional starvation. "She doesn't need more bodyguards," Nora said quietly, almost to herself. "She doesn't need another expensive meal. She just needs a mom." The words hung in the air like a verdict. Every person in that restaurant heard it. Every person understood it. This child, who could buy anything in the world, had nothing that actually mattered. What happened next would change 3 lives forever. But to understand how a waitress, a billionaire, and a broken little girl became a family, you need to know how they each arrived at this moment. You need to know what brought them here. And what it cost them to find each other. ## backstory, the CEO father. 2 years earlier, Vincent Chen stood in a hospital corridor that smelled like antiseptic and death, his hands shaking so violently he had to shove them in his pockets. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. The board. His investors. His assistant asking about tomorrow's meeting. He silenced it for the 4th time and stared at the closed door in front of him, unable to make himself go through it. Grace was inside. His Grace. And according to the doctor who delivered the news with practiced sympathy, she was dying. "Mr. Chen, I'm so sorry. There were complications during the emergency C-section. We did everything we could." Vincent had been in a meeting. A goddamn meeting about a merger that suddenly meant nothing. Grace had texted him 3 hours earlier, simple, cheerful, unworried. "Baby's coming early. On my way to the hospital. Love you." He'd seen the text. Read it during a presentation about quarterly projections. And he'd thought, "I'll finish this meeting then head over. She's not due for 2 more weeks. There's time." There wasn't time. By the time he arrived, Grace was unconscious. The baby was in distress. The doctors were running, shouting medical terms he didn't understand. And then Grace was in surgery and Vincent was in this hallway, and his entire world was collapsing. A nurse emerged, exhausted but smiling. "Mr. Chin? Your daughter is stable. She's small but she's a fighter. Would you like to meet her?" Vincent couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Because the nurse had said daughter, singular. Not wife and daughter. Just daughter. The nurse's smile faded. She touched his arm gently. "I'm so sorry. Your wife lost too much blood. We couldn't." Vincent didn't remember walking into the NICU. Didn't remember the nurse placing the tiny, fragile baby in his arms. But he remembered looking down at his daughter's face, red and wrinkled and impossibly small, and feeling something crack open inside his chest. This little girl had cost him everything. His wife. His happiness. His heart. And in that moment, holding her while Grace's body grew cold in another room, Vincent Chen made a vow. I'll give you everything I never had. Everything. You'll never want for anything. I swear it. He just didn't realize that everything he could buy would never be enough. Vincent had grown up in a one-bedroom apartment with peeling wallpaper and a bathroom shared with 3 other families. His mother worked 2 jobs. His father had left when Vincent was 5, walked out one morning and never came back, leaving nothing but debt and broken promises. Vincent learned early that poverty wasn't just about lacking money. It was about fear. Fear of eviction notices. Fear of empty cupboards. Fear of being invisible to a world that only noticed people with power and wealth. So he'd clawed his way out. Scholarships. Loans. 90-hour weeks. He'd built Chin Industries from nothing, turning a small tech startup into an empire worth billions. He'd made himself into exactly what his father wasn't: powerful, successful, untouchable. And he'd promised himself that any child of his would never feel small, never feel powerless, never feel afraid. But grief does strange things to promises. After Grace died, Vincent threw himself into work with a desperation that bordered on madness. If he stopped moving, he'd have to feel. If he felt, he'd shatter. So he didn't stop. 18-hour days became 20-hour days. Meetings bled into late-night calls. He slept in his office more than his bed. Lily was cared for. She had the best nannies money could hire. Private tutors. A mansion with more rooms than a child could explore in a month. Everything she could possibly need. Except him. Vincent told himself this was love. Providing. Protecting. Building an empire she'd inherit one day. He was giving her security, opportunity, a future without fear. But in reality he was hiding. From the guilt of choosing a meeting over his wife. From the pain of seeing Grace in Lily's eyes. From the terrifying vulnerability of loving something he could lose. In the present day, Vincent's life ran like clockwork. Precise. Controlled. Emotionless. He woke at 5. Reviewed reports while a chef he rarely saw prepared breakfast he barely tasted. His driver took him to the office by 6:30. Meetings, negotiations, decisions worth millions. He was brilliant at it, cold and calculating and utterly ruthless when necessary. His competitors feared him. His board respected him. His employees obeyed him. And his daughter barely knew him. Vincent saw Lily in passing. Brief moments in hallways. Awkward dinners where he checked his phone more than he looked at her. He told himself she understood. That she was happy. That the tutors and nannies were enough. But children aren't company reports. They don't respond to efficiency and delegation. They need presence, not presents. Time, not money. Lily's life was structured down to the minute. 7 a.m., wake up, breakfast. 8 a.m., Mandarin lesson with Miss Tang. 10 a.m., advanced mathematics. Noon, classical piano with Professor Ivanov. 2 p.m., violin. 4 p.m., etiquette training. At 6 years old, Lily could read financial newspapers. Could play Chopin. Could speak 3 languages. Could calculate compound interest in her head. But she couldn't name a single friend. Had never been to another child's birthday party. Had never skinned her knee playing tag or laughed so hard she couldn't breathe. She lived in a mansion that felt like a museum, beautiful, expensive, and utterly lifeless. Staff moved through rooms like ghosts, maintaining perfection. Every surface gleamed. Every corner was spotless. Nothing was ever out of place. Including Lily. She learned early not to be messy. Not to run in the halls. Not to touch things. Not to ask for too much. Not to cry where anyone could hear. She learned to be small and quiet and perfect, because perfect children didn't cause problems. And if she didn't cause problems, maybe, just maybe, her father would have time to notice her. But he never did. The night before the restaurant, Lily sat in her bedroom, a space designed by an interior decorator who'd never met her. Everything was white and gold and pristine. Beautiful. Cold. Lily's nanny, a kind but tired woman named Beatrice, had just finished reading the assigned chapter from an educational book about marine biology. It was informative. Accurate. Completely devoid of joy. Can you read me a story? Lily asked quietly. Pretend one? Beatrice hesitated. Your father wants you to focus on educational material. Please? Just one? But Beatrice was already standing, smoothing her uniform. It's late, sweetheart. Tomorrow's a big day, you have that piano recital. You need sleep. After Beatrice left, Lily pulled out her art supplies, the expensive set her father's assistant had ordered for her last birthday. She started drawing with crayons on thick paper. A family. A mother with a kind smile. A father with his arms open. A little girl between them holding both their hands. All 3 of them smiling. Lily stared at the drawing for a long time. Then, carefully, she wrote across the top in her careful child's handwriting, "My family." When Beatrice returned to check on her an hour later, she found Lily asleep, tear tracks on her cheeks. The drawing was torn into pieces on the floor. Beatrice cleaned up the scraps, heart aching. She wanted to wake Mr. Chen, to show him what his daughter had drawn and destroyed. To make him see. But Vincent Chen was in Tokyo. Or Singapore. Or somewhere thousands of miles away, making another deal, building another fortune his daughter would inherit but never enjoy. The next evening, Beatrice suggested taking Lily out to dinner. A change of scenery. Vincent's assistant approved it without consulting him. He was in meetings all day. That's how Lily ended up at Marchand's, surrounded by wealth and luxury and not a single person who understood why a child who had everything looked like she had nothing at all. Until she started crying. And couldn't stop. Nora Bennett's alarm went off at 5:30 a.m., dragging her from the few hours of sleep she'd managed. She slapped it silent and lay in the darkness of her studio apartment, listening to her upstairs neighbor's heavy footsteps and the distant wail of sirens. Her body ached. Her feet throbbed. Tomorrow's tips needed to cover this month's rent and her father's medication, which meant another double shift. Another day of smiling through exhaustion and pretending she didn't notice when customers spoke to her like she was invisible. She rolled out of bed and started her routine. Shower, cold because the hot water heater was broken again and the landlord kept promising to fix it. Coffee, instant because the good stuff was a luxury she couldn't afford. Breakfast, a banana and the ends of yesterday's bread toasted. The face in her bathroom mirror looked tired. 28 years old, but some mornings she felt 50. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. No makeup yet, she'd do that on the bus, saving precious minutes. Nora's apartment was tiny. Studio didn't quite capture how small. More like a bedroom with a kitchenette in the corner and a bathroom the size of a closet. But it was hers. She kept it clean, organized. A small bookshelf held her collection of cookbooks, each one worn from use and marked with notes. Her guilty pleasure. Her dream. On the top shelf sat a photo in a cheap frame. Nora and her father, taken 3 years ago at her nursing school graduation. Before the diagnosis. Before everything changed. She touched the frame gently like a prayer. "Hang on, Dad. I'm trying." Nora's mother had died when she was 7, breast cancer, fast and merciless. She barely remembered her, just fragments. Warm hands. A soft voice singing lullabies. The smell of vanilla and cinnamon. After that, it was just Nora and her father, Thomas. He'd been a construction worker, strong and steady, the kind of man who showed love through actions rather than words. He'd worked overtime to keep Nora in good schools. Helped with homework at the kitchen table, his rough hands carefully holding pencils he'd spent all day gripping hammers with. Drove her to every activity, every event, never missing a single thing that mattered to her. When Nora graduated high school with honors, Thomas cried. When she got into nursing school, he threw a party for their entire neighborhood. He was so proud. So sure she'd have a better life than he did. Nora had been 6 months from finishing her nursing degree when Thomas collapsed at a job site. The diagnosis came fast and brutal, ALS. Lou Gehrig's disease. Progressive. Incurable. The doctors gave him 2 to 5 years, maybe longer with expensive treatments and experimental drugs that insurance wouldn't cover. Nora dropped out immediately. Her father protested, of course. Begged her to finish. But someone had to work and someone had to take care of him, and there was only her. She got him into a care facility 3 hours away, the only place she could afford. Worked whatever jobs would hire her. Sent every extra penny to keep him comfortable, keep him alive, keep him hoping. It had been 3 years. Thomas was still fighting. But his body was failing, piece by piece, and Nora was running out of ways to pay for the care that kept him going. Nora had stumbled into restaurant work by accident and discovered she was good at it. Not just at carrying plates or remembering orders, but at the human part. Reading people. Knowing when to chat and when to stay quiet. Making guests feel seen. Marchand's had hired her 8 months ago. It was upscale, pretentious, the kind of place where entrees had French names and came in portions too small to satisfy anyone. But the tips were better than anywhere else she'd worked. Good enough that she could almost, keep up with her father's bills. Most of the staff at Marchand's looked down on her. She didn't have the pedigree, the training, the right background. She was just a girl from nowhere working twice as hard for half the respect. But the customers liked her. She was genuine in a world of fake smiles. Warm in a place that valued cold professionalism. One customer in particular had taken a shine to her. An elderly woman who came in every Tuesday, always requested Nora's section, always left generous tips. Mrs. Chen was kind, a little sad, and talked about her life like she was confessing secrets to a friend. "My son is very successful," Mrs. Chen had told Nora once, stirring sugar into her tea. "But success can be its own kind of prison." Nora had nodded, not really understanding. She couldn't imagine having so much success it felt like a prison. Mrs. Chen talked about her granddaughter sometimes. A little girl she barely saw. "My son thinks providing for her is the same as loving her. But children need more than bank accounts." Nora wanted to ask more, but Mrs. Chen always changed the subject, like she'd already said too much. Nora never learned the woman's first name. Never knew her son was Vincent Chen, the billionaire whose face appeared on magazine covers and business news. The night everything changed started like any other. Nora arrived at Marchand's at 5, tied on her apron, checked her section. The manager, a thin man named Pierre who spoke with an affected French accent despite being from New Jersey, was in a mood. "We have several VIP reservations tonight. I expect perfection." Nora nodded, swallowing her exhaustion. She'd been awake for 12 hours already, having worked a morning shift at a coffee shop. Her feet were already protesting. She had 6 more hours to go. The evening shift was brutal. Demanding customers. Complex orders. A man who sent back his steak 3 times, each time with a different complaint. A woman who snapped her fingers to get Nora's attention, like she was calling a dog. Nora smiled through it all. Apologized. Accommodated. Collected her tips and tried not to think about how much she'd have to grovel to pay for basic human dignity. Around 8 p.m. Pierre pulled her aside. "You're being moved to the private section." That was unusual. The private section was for VIPs, celebrities, people whose reservations came with security details. The senior staff usually handled it. Pierre's expression was pinched. "We're short-staffed tonight. And you're good with difficult situations." Before Nora could ask what that meant, she was ushering into the private dining area, separated from the main restaurant by frosted glass panels and heavy curtains. And that's when she heard it. The crying. A little girl sat at an enormous table, drowning in a space meant for adults. 2 men in black suits stood nearby, looking uncomfortable and useless. The child's shoulders shook with sobs that echoed off the walls. Something in Nora's chest cracked open. She'd spent 3 years watching her father lose his strength, his mobility, his independence. Spent 3 years helpless to fix the thing that mattered most. And here was this child, this small, heartbroken child, surrounded by people who had no idea how to help her. Nora didn't think. Didn't check with Pierre. Didn't worry about protocol. She walked over, knelt down, and did what any decent human being should do. She tried to help. Nora's knees pressed against the cold marble floor as she knelt beside Lily's chair. The little girl's crying had quieted slightly, but her small body still trembled. Up close, Nora could see the expensive details. The custom-tailored dress that probably cost more than Nora's monthly rent, the diamond studs in her ears, the delicate gold bracelet on her tiny wrist. But Nora also saw the things money couldn't hide. The exhaustion in those red-rimmed eyes. The tension in those small shoulders. The desperate, aching loneliness that radiated from this child like cold from ice. "Sweetheart," Nora said gently, keeping her voice low and calm. "My name is Nora. Can you tell me your name?" Lily hiccuped, wiping at her nose with the back of her hand, a gesture so childlike and normal it seemed out of place in this pristine setting. "Lily. That's a beautiful name. Lily like the flower." The little girl nodded, her crying settling into small, shuddering breaths. One of the bodyguards shifted closer, his voice firm but not unkind. "Miss Bennett, Mr. Chin has specific protocols regarding—" Nora didn't look at him. She kept her eyes on Lily, her hand still resting gently on the child's. "I'm just talking to her." "That's not against protocol, is it?" The bodyguard hesitated. "Technically no. But Mr. Chin doesn't like strangers engaging with his daughter without authorization." "I'm not a stranger. I'm the person bringing her dinner." Nora finally glanced up, meeting the bodyguard's eyes. "And unless your protocol includes letting a 6-year-old cry herself sick, I'm going to sit here for a few more minutes." The 2 men exchanged uncertain looks. Clearly, this situation wasn't covered in their training manual. Nora turned back to Lily, keeping her voice gentle. "Lily, are you hungry? You haven't touched your food." Lily shook her head, her voice small. "I'm not hungry." "That's okay. You don't have to eat if you don't want to." Nora paused, studying the little girl's face. "Can I tell you a secret?" Lily looked up, curious despite her tears. "When I'm sad, food doesn't taste good either. It's like my tummy is too full of sad feelings to fit anything else." Lily's lip trembled. That's exactly how it feels. Nora's heart broke a little more. I thought so. She glanced around the opulent private dining room, at the crystal chandeliers and the art on the walls worth more than some houses. This is a very fancy place. Lily nodded miserably. I don't like it. No. Why not? It's too quiet. Too big. Lily's voice dropped to a whisper. I wanted to go somewhere with other kids. Like the place with the playground and the happy meals. But Beatrice said Daddy wouldn't approve. Nora bit back her anger at this absent father who couldn't even let his daughter eat chicken nuggets at a play place like a normal kid. Well, fancy places can be boring. Especially when you're here by yourself. I'm always by myself. 3 words. Delivered with such casual resignation that they hit Nora like a physical blow. This child had accepted loneliness as her normal. She didn't even sound sad about it anymore, just factual. Nora made a decision. She straightened slightly, still on her knees, and smiled at Lily. Would you like me to tell you a story? Lily's eyes widened. A story? One of the bodyguards cleared his throat. Miss Bennet, I don't think. A story, Nora repeated firmly, not breaking eye contact with Lily. A pretend one. With magic and adventure. The kind that makes you forget where you are for a little while. Lily leaned forward, her tears forgotten. I've never heard a pretend story before. Nora felt something hot and fierce flash through her chest. Never? This child was 6 years old and had never been told a fairy tale? Then you're in for a treat. Nora settled into a more comfortable position, ignoring her protesting knees. This is the story of a little star named Luna. As Nora began to speak, something magical happened. Lily stopped crying completely. She sat transfixed, her small hands gripping the edge of her chair, her eyes locked on Nora's face. Luna lived in the night sky, surrounded by billions of other stars. They were all beautiful and bright, but Luna felt different from them. She sparkled, sure, but inside she felt dim. Like her light wasn't quite bright enough. Lily nodded slowly, and Nora knew she was understanding on a level deeper than words. Every night, Luna watched the world below. She saw children playing, families laughing, people holding hands. And she wished, more than anything, that she could come down and be part of that warmth. But stars have to stay in the sky. That's the rule. Nora's voice took on a gentle, rhythmic quality. The kind of voice meant for bedtime stories and safe spaces. One night, Luna was shining over a little girl who was crying just like you were. And Luna wanted so badly to help that something incredible happened. Her light grew brighter. Brighter and brighter, until it was the brightest star in the whole sky. Did she get to come down? Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. No. But something better happened. The little girl looked up and saw Luna shining just for her. And suddenly the little girl didn't feel so alone anymore. Because even though Luna was far away in the sky, her light was right there, keeping the little girl company. Nora paused, letting the story settle. And Luna realized something important. She didn't need to leave the sky to matter. She just needed to shine for someone who needed her light. Lily was silent for a long moment. Then quietly, am I like that little girl? Nora reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair behind Lily's ear. Maybe. But you know what? You can be like Luna too. You can shine for people who need your light. But I don't know how. You just did. You let me tell you a story. That was brave. Nora smiled softly. And now I don't feel quite so tired anymore. Your light helped me even if you didn't know it. For the first time all evening, Lily smiled. It was small, tentative, but real. A genuine expression of joy on a face that looked like it had forgotten how. The transformation was remarkable. Color returned to Lily's cheeks. Her shoulders relaxed. She even picked up her fork and took a small bite of her long cold dinner, as if the story had somehow restored her appetite. Nora stayed beside her, chatting quietly about simple things. Favorite colors. Animals. The shapes of clouds. All the normal, meaningless, precious conversations that children should have but that this particular child had apparently been denied. Other diners were watching now, drawn by the sound of Lily's soft laughter. A few women smiled. One older gentleman nodded approvingly. But others looked uncomfortable, as if witnessing genuine emotion in this sterile environment violated some unspoken rule. The bodyguards remained tense, clearly uncertain about this breach of protocol but unable to articulate exactly what rule was being broken. After all, Nora was just talking to the child. Making her smile. What harm could that possibly cause? Then the atmosphere in the room shifted. Grew colder. Someone important had arrived. Nora felt it before she saw him. The way the bodyguard straightened, the way other diners' eyes flicked toward the entrance. She turned her head slightly and saw him. Vincent Chin. She didn't know his name yet. Didn't recognize him from business magazines or news reports. But she knew power when she saw it. It radiated from him like heat, commanding attention without effort. He was tall, impeccably dressed in a suit that probably cost more than Nora made in 6 months. His face was striking, sharp features, dark eyes, expression utterly controlled. But beneath that control Nora saw something else. Exhaustion. The kind that lived in bones and couldn't be cured by sleep. He walked toward their table with measured steps, his eyes moving from the bodyguards to Lily to Nora, still kneeling on the floor. For a brief moment, so quick Nora almost missed it, something flickered across his face. Surprise. Confusion. And something that might have been relief as he registered his daughter's smile. Then his expression hardened into cool professionalism. Lily saw him and immediately tensed, her smile fading. Daddy. The single word carried so much weight. Hope. Fear. Desperate need for approval. Vincent's gaze finally settled on Nora. Who are you? Vincent had been in meetings for 14 hours straight. Tokyo, then London, then back to his office for emergency calls with the legal team. His head pounded. His eyes burned. Every muscle in his body screamed for rest. When his assistant mentioned that Lily was at Marchand's, he barely registered it. Fine. Good. The nanny had it handled. Then, 20 minutes ago, he'd received a text from the head of security. Situation at the restaurant. Not dangerous but unusual. You should come. Unusual was not a word Vincent liked. It meant variables he couldn't control. Chaos entering his carefully ordered world. He'd left immediately, his driver breaking several traffic laws to get him there in under 10 minutes. The entire ride, Vincent's mind raced through possibilities. Was Lily hurt? Sick? Had there been a threat? He'd burst into Marchand's expecting crisis. Instead, he found his daughter smiling at a stranger. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. Lily was safe. Fine. More than fine, she looked happy. But right behind the relief came something else. Something darker. Because Vincent couldn't remember the last time he'd made his daughter smile like that. He studied the woman kneeling beside Lily's chair. She was young, maybe late 20s. Plain uniform marking her as staff. No makeup. Tired eyes. Nothing remarkable about her except the way she looked at his daughter, with genuine warmth and concern that made something uncomfortable twist in Vincent's gut. Who are you? His voice came out colder than he intended, but he didn't soften it. The woman stood slowly, meeting his eyes without flinching. Most people couldn't hold his gaze. They looked away, intimidated by his wealth or reputation or the sheer force of his presence. But this woman just looked at him steadily, and he saw something in her expression that he hadn't encountered in years. Judgment. I'm Nora Bennett. I work here. She gestured to her uniform as if he might have missed it. Your daughter was upset, so I sat with her for a few minutes. Vincent's jaw tightened. My security team is paid to handle my daughter's needs. Really? Nora's voice remained calm, but there was an edge to it now. Because from where I was standing, they were doing a great job of standing there while she cried. One of the bodyguards shifted uncomfortably. Sir, we followed protocol. We didn't allow any unauthorized. Vincent held up a hand, silencing him. His eyes never left Nora's face. You don't know anything about my daughter or what she needs. I know she needed someone to sit with her. Someone to listen to her. Nora crossed her arms. Someone to treat her like a child instead of a security risk. The accusation in her tone made Vincent's temper flare. He'd spent 6 years building walls around himself, protecting his emotions, staying in control. The stranger had been here for what, 10 minutes? And she thought she understood his life? My daughter has everything she needs, he said, each word precisely controlled. She's cared for by professionals. Educated by the best tutors. She wants for nothing. Except a parent who shows up. The words hung between them like a slap. Vincent felt heat rise in his chest. Felt his carefully maintained composure crack. Who the hell did this woman think she was? You have no right. I have every right. Nora stepped closer, and despite the difference in their social status, despite the fortune that separated their worlds, she didn't back down. I have the right that comes from being a human being who saw a child suffering and chose to help instead of standing around following protocol. She was crying for 20 minutes. Lily's voice was small, but it cut through the tension like a knife. They didn't know what to do. But Miss Nora told me a story and I felt better. Vincent looked at his daughter, really looked at her, and saw the tear tracks on her face. Saw the exhaustion in her small frame. Saw the way she glanced between him and Nora, as if afraid they'd fight and somehow it would be her fault. Guilt crashed over him. His daughter had been crying for 20 minutes and he hadn't even known. Hadn't been there. Had been in another meeting, making another deal, too busy to notice his child falling apart. Nora's voice softened slightly. Look, I'm not trying to attack you. But your daughter needed comfort tonight and she wasn't getting it. So I gave it to her. That's all. Vincent wanted to argue. Wanted to defend himself, his choices, his entire approach to parenting. But the words stuck in his throat because some part of him, the part he'd buried under work and walls, knew she was right. He looked at Lily again. His 6-year-old daughter who should be laughing and playing and driving him crazy with childish energy. Instead, she sat perfectly still, perfectly quiet, perfectly controlled. Like a miniature adult. Like him. When had that happened? When had his vibrant, curious baby become this subdued little ghost? Thank you, he said finally, forcing the words out. For your concern. But we'll be leaving now. He moved toward Lily, intending to take her hand and walk out with whatever dignity he had left. But before he could reach her, Lily did something that shocked them all. She slid out of her chair and ran to Nora, wrapping her small arms around the woman's legs and burying her face against her hip. Please don't go, Lily whispered. Please stay with me. Vincent froze. Stared at his daughter clinging to a stranger with a desperation she'd never shown with him. The nannies, yes. The tutors, sometimes. But never with that raw need. That terror of abandonment. Nora looked stricken. She knelt down again, gently taking Lily's shoulders. Sweetheart, I have to work. But you're going home with your daddy now and… No. Lily's voice rose, edging toward panic. Everyone always leaves. The nannies leave. The tutors leave. You'll leave too. I'm not leaving. I work here. You can come back and visit me anytime. Promise? Nora hesitated, glancing up at Vincent. Their eyes met, and in that moment, something passed between them. An understanding. An acknowledgement of the impossible situation they'd stumbled into. I promise, Nora said quietly. If you come back here, I'll tell you another story. Okay. Lily nodded, but she didn't let go. Her small fingers gripped Nora's uniform like a lifeline. Vincent watched this scene unfold and felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. Shame. Deep, burning shame at the realization that his daughter was so starved for affection that she'd rather cling to a stranger than go home with him. He stepped forward and placed a hand on Lily's shoulder. The touch was awkward, uncertain. Like he'd forgotten how to be gentle with his own child. Lily, we need to go home. She looked up at him with those red, swollen eyes, Grace's eyes, the ones that haunted his dreams, and asked the question that shattered what remained of his carefully constructed walls. Why don't you ever stay with me, Daddy? Vincent's throat closed. Every excuse he'd ever made, every justification for his absence, turned to ash in his mouth. Because standing in this restaurant, watching his daughter cling to a waitress she'd known for 30 minutes, he couldn't pretend anymore. He couldn't pretend she was fine. Couldn't pretend his money and his empire and his carefully hired staff were enough. Couldn't pretend he wasn't failing her in the exact way he'd sworn he never would. His voice cracked. He cleared his throat, tried again. I'm here now. But it sounded hollow even to his own ears. He was here now, yes. For 10 minutes. Before he'd disappear again into meetings and calls and the endless work he used to avoid exactly this, feeling something. Nora was watching him, and Vincent saw the pity in her eyes. It made him want to lash out, to defend himself, to remind her that she knew nothing about his life or his pain. But he was so tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of running. Tired of being alone in his grief while his daughter was alone in hers. Lily, Nora said gently, your daddy came all the way here to see you. That means something. Lily turned to look at Vincent, searching his face for something. What she was looking for he didn't know. Whatever it was, he must have failed to provide it because her small face crumpled. Can Miss Nora come home with us? The question hung in the air, absurd and impossible and somehow perfectly logical from a child's perspective. If this person made her feel better, why couldn't she just stay? That's not possible, sweetheart. Nora's voice was soft but firm. I have my own home. My own life. But I don't want you to leave. Lily's voice rose again, tears spilling over. Everyone always leaves. Mommy left and the nannies leave and Daddy's always gone and I'm always alone. The words echoed through the restaurant. Other diners were staring now, some with sympathy, others with the uncomfortable fascination of people witnessing someone else's private pain. Vincent felt every eye on him. Felt the judgment. The whispers that would start as soon as he left. Did you see Vincent Chen's daughter? Poor thing. All that money and she's absolutely miserable. He should care about his reputation. About appearances. About damage control. But all he could see was his daughter's face, destroyed by a loneliness he'd created. Lily. Vincent's voice came out rougher than he intended. He knelt down, bringing himself to her level for the first time in. God, how long had it been? Look at me. Lily turned reluctantly, her arms still wrapped around Nora. I know I haven't been there. Vincent forced himself to say it, even as every instinct screamed at him to deflect, to make excuses. I know you're lonely. And I'm sorry. The apology felt foreign in his mouth. Vincent Chin didn't apologize. Didn't show weakness. Didn't admit fault. But looking at his daughter's tear-stained face, he realized that strength and pride meant nothing if they cost him the only person who actually mattered. Can you fix it? Lily asked, with the heartbreaking simplicity of a child who still believed adults could solve anything. Vincent wanted to say yes. Wanted to promise her everything would change. But he'd made promises before, to Grace, to himself, to this little girl, and broken them all. I can try. It was the most honest answer he had. Lily studied him for a long moment. Then slowly she released Nora and took a small step toward Vincent. Just one step. Tentative. Testing. Vincent opened his arms and Lily walked into them. She felt so small. So fragile. Like something precious he'd almost let slip through his fingers. He held her carefully, afraid of squeezing too tight, afraid of letting go. Her small body shook with leftover sobs, and he felt each one like a knife to his chest. Over Lily's head, Vincent's eyes met Nora's again. The judgment was still there, but something else too. Something that looked almost like hope. She gave him a slight nod. Like a benediction. Like permission to try. Then she stepped back, giving them space, and Vincent realized the restaurant had gone silent. Everyone was watching this moment. A billionaire CEO kneeling on the floor of an expensive restaurant, holding his crying daughter, his perfect armor finally cracked. He should be embarrassed. Should care about the photos that were probably being taken, the gossip that would spread through his social circles. But for the first time in 2 years, Vincent Chin didn't care what anyone thought. Come on, he said quietly to Lily. Let's go home. Will you stay? Lily asked, looking up at him with desperate hope. Will you stay home with me tonight? Every instinct told him to check his phone. To see what meetings he was missing, what calls needed returning. But he left his phone in his pocket. Yes, I'll stay. Lily's face transformed. The smile that broke through her tears was like sunrise after a long night. Really? Really? She took his hand, her small fingers wrapping around his larger ones, and for a moment, Vincent remembered holding her hand in the hospital. Remembered promising to give her everything. Maybe he'd been giving her the wrong things all along. As they walked toward the exit, Lily stopped and turned back to Nora. Thank you for the story, Miss Nora. Nora smiled, and Vincent noticed for the first time that it was a genuinely kind smile. Not practiced or professional. Just warm. You're welcome, Lily. Remember, you can shine too. Lily nodded seriously, as if this were the most important lesson she'd ever learned. Vincent found himself nodding to Nora as well. A stiff, uncomfortable acknowledgement. But sincere. Thank you. Nora met his eyes one more time. She doesn't need more things, Mr. Chin. She just needs you. The words followed Vincent out of the restaurant into the car all the way home. They echoed in his head as he carried a sleeping Lily up to her room, as he looked around at the expensive furniture and the untouched toys and the life he'd built that looked perfect and felt empty. She just needs you. 3 simple words. But they contained an accusation, a challenge, and a truth he'd been running from for 2 years. Vincent sat in the chair beside Lily's bed, an uncomfortable, ornate thing chosen by a decorator, not meant for actual sitting, and watched his daughter sleep. Her face was peaceful now. Younger somehow. Vulnerable. Grace would be so disappointed in him. Would see exactly how badly he'd failed the daughter they'd made together. The thought made his chest ache. But Nora's words came back to him. Not accusatory this time. Almost encouraging. I can try, he told Lily. And maybe that was enough. Maybe trying was where he needed to start. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Then again. Then a third time. Messages from his assistant, his board members, people who needed him to make decisions worth millions. Vincent pulled out his phone, looked at the screen full of notifications and did something he'd never done before. He turned it off. Then he settled back in the uncomfortable chair and stayed with his daughter. All night. Just like he'd promised. In the morning, everything would still be broken. He'd still be a man who didn't know how to show love. Lily would still be a lonely child growing up in a mansion that felt like a museum. The damage of 2 years couldn't be fixed in one night. But for the first time since Grace died, Vincent Chin stayed. He didn't run to work or hide behind meetings or choose anything over being present. He simply stayed. And in that quiet room with dawn still hours away, something small began to shift. Not healing yet. Not transformation. Just the tiniest crack in the walls that had kept them both isolated. A beginning. Somewhere across the city, Nora Bennett finished her shift and took the bus home to her tiny apartment. She was exhausted, her feet aching, her heart heavy with thoughts of a lonely little girl in a mansion. She didn't know Vincent Chen's name yet. Didn't know his story or his pain or the guilt that ate at him. But she knew what she'd seen, a child starving for love and a father who'd forgotten how to give it. As she lay in bed, too tired to sleep, Nora thought about Lily's question. Can Miss Nora come home with us? Impossible, of course. Absurd. She was a waitress and they were, whatever they were, rich beyond measure. Living in a world she couldn't imagine. But something about that little girl had worked its way under Nora's skin. The loneliness in her eyes. The desperate hunger for connection. The way she'd smiled when someone finally treated her like a child instead of an obligation. Nora had spent 3 years helpless to save her father from a disease that was slowly stealing him away. But maybe, just maybe, she could help one broken little girl find her way back to happiness. The thought followed her into sleep, planting seeds of something that hadn't existed before. Hope. Connection. The possibility that sometimes the right person appears at exactly the right moment. Neither Nora nor Vincent knew it yet, but their lives had just collided in a way that would change everything. The waitress and the billionaire. The warmth and the walls. The heart that had remained open despite pain, and the heart that had closed to protect itself. And in between them, a 6-year-old girl who needed what neither could provide alone. But together? Together they might just save each other. What would you do if you saw a child that lost? That alone? Would you walk away or would you take the risk of getting involved? Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is simply show up for someone who needs us. Even if it's uncomfortable. Even if it changes everything. 2 days after the restaurant incident, Vincent sat in his home office staring at security footage he'd requested from Marchand's. He'd watched it 17 times now, each viewing revealing something new that twisted the knife of guilt deeper into his chest. There was Lily crying. Small shoulders shaking. The bodyguard standing uselessly nearby, following protocol while a child suffered. And there was the waitress, Nora Bennett, he'd learned her name, approaching without hesitation, kneeling down, speaking with a gentleness that made Vincent's throat tight. He watched his daughter's face transform. Watched her stop crying, start listening, finally smile. A genuine smile that lit up her entire face in a way Vincent couldn't remember ever causing. The office door opened without warning. Only one person in his life had that privilege. His mother, Eleanor Chen, walked in with the quiet authority of someone who'd raised a billionaire and wasn't impressed by his money. She was 72, elegant in a simple dress, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her eyes, sharp and knowing, swept over Vincent, taking in the exhaustion, the tension, the footage frozen on his computer screen. She didn't ask permission. Simply settled into the chair across from his desk and waited. Vincent paused the video. Mother. I wasn't expecting you. I heard about the restaurant. Eleanor's voice was soft but carried an edge. The whole city heard about it, actually. You made quite a scene. Lily made a scene. Vincent's tone was defensive, and he hated himself for it. I was simply... You were embarrassed. Eleanor leaned forward slightly. Your daughter was crying in public, clinging to a stranger, and you felt exposed. Vulnerable. So you did what you always do, you controlled the situation and left. That's not. Vincent, I've known you for 35 years. I know when you're running. Eleanor's expression softened. I also know why. Vincent's jaw tightened. He looked away, unable to hold his mother's gaze. She had a way of seeing through every wall he built, every defense he constructed. It was infuriating and, in moments like this, unbearable. Grace's death broke you. I understand that. Eleanor's voice gentled even further. But you're breaking Lily in the process. The words hit like a physical blow. Vincent wanted to argue, to defend himself, to list all the ways he provided for his daughter. But his mother's eyes held too much truth. I don't know how to fix it. The admission felt like failure. I don't know how to be what she needs. Then find someone who does. Eleanor stood, walking to the window that overlooked the city. Hire someone who can teach you. Someone Lily already trusts. Vincent followed her gaze, then looked back at the frozen image on his screen. Nora Bennett, kneeling beside his daughter, her face full of compassion and warmth. The waitress? That waitress did more for Lily in 30 minutes than anyone else has managed in months. Eleanor turned to face him. She saw a child in pain and helped her. Without hesitation. Without asking what was in it for her. When was the last time anyone in your world did something purely out of kindness? Vincent had no answer. His world ran on transactions, negotiations, mutually beneficial arrangements. Pure kindness was a concept he'd almost forgotten existed. You're suggesting I hire her? To do what, exactly? To be present. To show Lily, and you, what connection looks like. Eleanor moved toward the door, then paused. Your father and I were poor, Vincent. We struggled. But you never doubted for 1 second that you were loved. Can Lily say the same? She left before he could answer. The question hung in the empty office, heavy and accusatory. Vincent turned back to his computer, staring at the image of his daughter's smile. Then he opened a new window and began typing. He did what he always did when faced with a problem. Research. Background checks. Financial records. Social media presence. Within an hour, he knew Nora Bennett's life story in cold, factual detail. 28 years old. Father in a care facility with ALS. Dropped out of nursing school to support him. Works 2 jobs, barely making ends meet. No criminal record. No red flags. Just a woman struggling and sacrificing for someone she loved. Vincent understood sacrifice. But his sacrifices bought empires. Hers bought a few more months with a dying father. He found himself respecting that. Resenting it too, because it highlighted everything he wasn't doing for his own child. The logical part of his brain, the part that had built Chin Industries, began calculating. Nora Bennett needed money. He needed someone who could connect with Lily. This could be mutually beneficial. A transaction. Clean, professional, controlled. But something about reducing that moment in the restaurant to a business arrangement felt wrong. Dirty somehow. Vincent pushed the feeling aside. Emotions complicated things. This was a practical solution to a practical problem. He called his assistant. I need you to arrange a meeting. Confidential. He gave her Nora's information. Offer her compensation for her time. Make it clear this is important. His assistant, used to strange requests, simply said, yes, sir. When? Tomorrow. My office. Early afternoon. After ending the call, Vincent sat back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. He was about to offer a stranger access to his home, his daughter, his carefully controlled life. Every instinct screamed that this was dangerous. Unpredictable. A variable he couldn't fully control. But Lily's voice echoed in his memory. Why don't you ever stay with me, Daddy? And Nora's words. She doesn't need more things. She just needs you. Maybe this woman could teach him how to be present. How to connect. How to be the father Lily deserved instead of the hollow provider he'd become. Or maybe this was just another way of avoiding the real work, hiring someone else to fix what only he could fix. Vincent didn't know. But for the first time in 2 years he was willing to try something different. Something that scared him. Something that required him to admit he didn't have all the answers. He pulled up Nora's contact information one more time, staring at the grainy driver's license photo. She looked tired in the picture. Worn down. But her eyes held something his world had lost. Hope. Warmth. The belief that kindness still mattered. Vincent Chin was about to offer her a deal. He just hoped she'd say yes. Nora was elbow-deep in dishwater at her apartment sink when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, usually spam or bill collectors, but something made her dry her hands and pick up. Miss Bennett? A crisp, professional female voice. I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Vincent Chin. He'd like to meet with you tomorrow to discuss a potential opportunity. Nora's stomach dropped. Vincent Chin. The billionaire father from the restaurant. She'd spent 2 days trying not to think about that little girl's face, trying not to wonder if anything had changed. An opportunity? Nora kept her voice carefully neutral. Mr. Chin prefers to discuss the details in person. The assistant's tone revealed nothing. The meeting would be at his office, 2 p.m. tomorrow. You'll be compensated for your time regardless of whether you accept his proposal. $500 just for attending. Nora nearly dropped the phone. $500. That was half her rent. A week's worth of groceries. A payment toward her father's medication. What kind of proposal? I'm not at liberty to discuss specifics. The assistant paused. But I can assure you this is a legitimate business opportunity. Mr. Chin was impressed by your interaction with his daughter. Suspicion crept up Nora's spine. She'd heard stories. Rich men. Young women. Offers that sounded too good to be true because they were. I'm not interested in. This is regarding childcare, Miss Bennett. The assistant's voice turned slightly warmer as if reading Nora's thoughts. Mr. Chin is looking for someone to spend time with his daughter. Nothing inappropriate. I can send you a formal meeting request with details if that would make you more comfortable. Nora exhaled slowly. Childcare. For Lily. The lonely little girl who'd clung to her like a lifeline. She should say no. should stay far away from billionaires and their complicated lives. She had enough problems of her own. But she kept seeing Lily's face. Kept hearing that small voice. I want my mommy. Send me the details, Nora heard herself say. I'll think about it. After hanging up, she stared at her phone for a long moment. Then she called the one person whose opinion she trusted more than her own. Her father answered on the fourth ring, his voice weak but warm. Nora Bear. Twice in 1 week? I'm spoiled. Despite everything, the exhaustion, the confusion, the fear, Nora smiled. Hey Dad. How are you feeling? Same as always. Slower. Thomas Bennett had lost the ability to walk 6 months ago. Soon he'd lose the ability to feed himself. Eventually he'd lose the ability to breathe. But he never lost his sense of humor. Stop stalling. Something's bothering you. Nora settled onto her worn couch, tucking her legs under her. Do you remember me telling you about that little girl at the restaurant? The lonely one? Of course. Her father wants to meet with me. Nora explained the call, the vague offer, the money just for showing up. Feels strange, Dad. Like I'm stepping into something I don't understand. Thomas was quiet for a moment. What does your gut tell you? That she needs help. That little girl is drowning and no one around her knows how to swim. Then maybe you're exactly what she needs. Her father's breathing was labored, but his conviction was clear. You've always had a gift, Nora. You see people. Really see them. That's rare. But I'm not a nanny. I'm not a therapist. You're someone who cares. Thomas coughed, a wet, rattling sound that made Nora's chest tight. The world has plenty of qualified people doing jobs they don't care about. That child doesn't need another employee. She needs someone who sees her as a person, not a paycheck. But what if I make things worse? What if I? The fear in her voice must have shown, because her father's tone shifted. Became the one he'd used when she was small and afraid of the dark. Nora Bear, I've been where that little girl is. Not the same circumstances, but the feeling, I know it. When your mother died, you were 7. Lost. Scared. And you know what saved you? Nora's throat tightened. You did. I showed up. That's all. I didn't have answers. Didn't know how to raise a daughter alone. But I showed up every single day and loved you the best I could. Her father paused. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's everything. After they hung up, Nora sat in her quiet apartment and thought about showing up. About the courage it took to be present for someone else's pain when you had plenty of your own. She thought about Lily's desperate grip. The way she'd smiled at a simple story. The hunger for connection that radiated from that small body like heat. Nora pulled up her bank account on her phone. Negative $43. Her father's care facility had sent another reminder about overdue payments. She had 3 days until rent was due and no idea where the money would come from. $500 just to take a meeting. And if there was an actual job offer? Money that could buy time with her father. Could buy medication. Could buy a few more months of keeping the man who'd raised her alive and comfortable. But this wasn't about money. Not really. This was about a 6-year-old girl who'd asked her a question Nora couldn't stop thinking about. Will you stay? Nora had made a promise. That she'd be there if Lily came back. That she'd tell another story. Maybe this was the universe giving her a chance to keep that promise. Or maybe she was being naive. Seeing goodness where there was only transaction. Rich people didn't offer opportunities out of kindness, they bought solutions to problems. And Lily was clearly a problem her father didn't know how to solve. Nora looked at the photo on her shelf. Her father, healthy and strong, holding her diploma. So proud. She'd wanted to be a nurse. To help people. To make a difference in the world. Life had derailed those plans. But maybe this was a different way to help. A different kind of healing. She picked up her phone and typed out a response to the assistant's email. I'll be there tomorrow at 2. Then, before she could second-guess herself, she hit send. The Chin estate wasn't a house. It was a statement. Nora stood at the front entrance 3 days after her meeting with Vincent, a single worn duffel bag in her hand, and tried not to let her jaw drop. She'd known Vincent Chin was wealthy, everyone knew that, but seeing his home was different than knowing about his money. The mansion sprawled across perfectly manicured grounds behind iron gates that had opened automatically when her taxi approached. Stone and glass and architectural lines that probably had a fancy name she didn't know. The kind of place that appeared in magazines under headings like modern luxury or contemporary elegance. The kind of place where people like her normally entered through the back door. The meeting in Vincent's office had been strange. Professional but tense. He'd laid out his proposal with the precision of a business contract, which she'd quickly realized it essentially was. He needed someone to spend time with Lily. To provide emotional support, companionship, the kind of connection he couldn't seem to manage himself. Live-in position. Private quarters. Salary that had made Nora's head spin, more than she'd made in 6 months of double shifts. Plus benefits, including coverage of her father's medical expenses. That last part had sealed it. When Vincent had mentioned it, casually like it wasn't the difference between life and death for Thomas Bennett, Nora's resistance had crumbled. But she'd set her terms. 3 months trial basis. If it wasn't working for Lily, she'd leave. No questions, no penalties. Vincent had agreed, though something in his expression suggested he wasn't used to people negotiating with him. Now, standing at his front door with her pathetic duffel bag, Nora wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. The door opened before she could knock. A woman in a formal uniform, actual uniform like something from a period drama, stood in the entrance. She was middle-aged, her expression professionally neutral but her eyes cold. "Miss Bennett. I'm Mrs. Sterling, the head of household staff. Mr. Chin is in meetings. I'll show you to your quarters." "No, welcome. No, we're glad you're here. Just cold efficiency." Nora followed Mrs. Sterling through a foyer that could have fit her entire apartment. Marble floors. A chandelier that probably cost more than a car. Art on the walls that looked expensive enough to require insurance. Everything was perfect, pristine, untouched, and completely, utterly lifeless. "Your quarters are in the West Wing." Mrs. Sterling's heels clicked against the marble as she walked, not looking back to see if Nora was keeping up. "You'll have a bedroom, private bathroom, and sitting area. Breakfast is served at 7, lunch at noon, dinner at 6:30. Staff meals are taken separately in the kitchen." Nora blinked. "Separately?" Mr. Chin prefers to maintain boundaries between family and staff. The message was clear: your staff. Know your place. They climbed a curved staircase, actual curved staircase, the kind Nora had only seen in movies, and walked down a hallway lined with closed doors. Everything was decorated in whites and grays, modern and expensive and cold. Finally, Mrs. Sterling opened a door. "This is yours." The room was bigger than Nora's apartment. A king-sized bed. A sitting area with a couch and television. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking gardens that looked like something from a resort. The bathroom, visible through an open door, had a tub big enough to swim in. It was beautiful. Perfect. And somehow made Nora feel even more out of place. The closet has been stocked with appropriate attire. Mrs. Sterling gestured to another door. "Mr. Chin felt your current wardrobe might not be suitable for the household." Heat flushed Nora's cheeks. Appropriate attire. Translation: your clothes aren't good enough. "I brought my own clothes, thanks." Mrs. Sterling's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes sharpened. "As you wish. Lily is in her lessons until 4. You're expected to join her for dinner. Don't be late." She left without another word, closing the door with a soft click that somehow felt like a rejection. Nora stood in the middle of her beautiful, sterile room and felt the weight of what she'd agreed to settle onto her shoulders. This wasn't a job. This was entering a different world entirely. One with rules she didn't know and people who'd already decided she didn't belong. She walked to the window and looked out at the grounds. Somewhere in this massive house was a little girl who needed her. That's what mattered. Not Mrs. Sterling's coldness or the intimidating perfection or the feeling that she was playing dress-up in someone else's life. Nora unpacked her duffel bag, which took all of 5 minutes, and changed into clean jeans and her nicest sweater. Then, because she couldn't stand waiting in this beautiful prison of a room, she went looking for Lily. She found her 20 minutes later after getting lost twice and asking directions from a gardener who'd looked at her like she'd sprouted a second head. The mansion was a maze of hallways and rooms, most of which seemed unused. Like a museum built for ghosts. Lily was in what Mrs. Sterling had called the study, a room lined with bookshelves and dominated by a grand piano. She sat at a small desk, hunched over what looked like advanced mathematics worksheets. A stern-looking woman in her 50s stood over her, correcting her work with a red pen. "No, Lily. We've been over this. Carry the 2." Lily's small voice was barely audible. "I'm sorry, Ms. Rodriguez. Sorry doesn't improve your scores." The tutor tapped the paper with the pen. "Again. From the beginning." Nora watched for another moment, her chest tightening. Lily looked miserable. Small. Defeated in a way no 6-year-old should. She knocked gently on the open door. Both Lily and the tutor looked up. And Lily's face transformed. "Miss Nora." She was out of her chair and running before the tutor could stop her, throwing herself into Nora's arms with a force that nearly knocked her over. "You came. You really came." Nora knelt down, catching Lily in a hug that felt like coming home. "Of course I came. I promised, didn't I?" Lily pulled back, her eyes, Grace's eyes, though Nora didn't know that yet, shining with joy. Are you visiting? Will you tell me another story? I'm better than visiting. Nora smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind Lily's ear. I'm staying. For a while at least. Lily's expression was pure wonder. Staying? Here. Excuse me. The tutor's voice was sharp with disapproval. We're in the middle of a lesson. I'm sorry. Nora stood, keeping one hand on Lily's shoulder. I didn't mean to interrupt. The tutor, Ms. Rodriguez, looked Nora up and down with barely concealed disdain. And you are? Nora Bennett. The new nanny. Ms. Rodriguez's tone made it sound like an insult. Mr. Chin mentioned you might be joining the household. However, Lily's education is my responsibility. I'd appreciate if you didn't disrupt her lessons. Nora felt Lily's hand slip into hers, small fingers gripping tight. The desperate hold of a child afraid of being abandoned again. I understand. Nora kept her voice calm despite the anger building in her chest. What time does Lily's lesson end? 4 o'clock. Then she has violin practice until 5:30, followed by Mandarin tutoring until 7. Nora glanced at the clock on the wall. It was 2:45. That's over 4 hours. When does she get to play? Play? Ms. Rodriguez looked genuinely confused. Lily's schedule is designed to maximize her developmental potential. Play is scheduled for 30 minutes before bed on weekends. Lily's grip on Nora's hand tightened. She was looking at the floor now, her earlier joy deflating like a punctured balloon. Something hot and fierce rose in Nora's chest. She's 6 years old. Exactly. These are crucial developmental years. Mr. Chin wants Lily to have every advantage. Nora wanted to argue. Wanted to point out that advantages meant nothing if they crushed a child's spirit. But she was here for 3 days and Ms. Rodriguez had clearly been here much longer. Pick your battles, her father would have said. Well, I'll let you get back to it. Nora squeezed Lily's hand gently. I'll see you at dinner, okay? Lily nodded, her eyes pleading. Don't leave. I'm not leaving. I'm just going to be in my room. Right down that hall. Nora pointed. Anytime you need me, you can find me. I promise. She said it loud enough for Ms. Rodriguez to hear. Setting boundaries. Making it clear that she wasn't here to follow the same script everyone else seemed to be reading from. After leaving the study, Nora wandered the halls until she found the kitchen. It was massive, commercial-grade appliances, marble counters, enough space to cook for 50 people. A man in a chef's coat looked up from his prep work, surprised. Can I help you? Just looking around. Nora smiled. I'm Nora. I just moved in. The chef's expression was wary. We serve meals at specific times. If you're hungry. Actually, I was wondering if I could use the kitchen sometime. To cook. The chef stared at her like she'd suggested burning the house down. This is my kitchen. We have protocols, menus, dietary requirements. I just meant maybe to make cookies with Lily sometime. Or pancakes. Nora saw his expression hardening and backed off. Never mind. Sorry to bother you. She retreated, feeling the walls closing in. Every person she met, every interaction, reinforced the same message. This isn't your world. You don't belong here. Dinner that evening was exactly as uncomfortable as Nora had feared. They ate in a formal dining room at a table that could seat 20. Vincent at the head, Lily to his right, Nora across from Lily. Between them, miles of polished wood and expensive china. Vincent had barely looked at her since she arrived. Now he made polite conversation that felt rehearsed. I trust your quarters are acceptable? They're wonderful. Thank you. Silence. The clink of silverware on china. Lily ate carefully, properly, cutting her food into precise pieces. Lily had a productive day. Vincent directed this at his daughter. Ms. Rodriguez says you're making good progress in mathematics. Lily nodded, not meeting his eyes. Yes, Daddy. More silence. Nora watched father and daughter sit 5 feet apart and interact like strangers. Like people who'd never learned each other's language. She couldn't take it anymore. So, Lily, what's your favorite color? Both Vincent and Lily looked at her like she'd started speaking another language. Your favorite color? Nora repeated. Mine's green. The color of leaves in spring. What's yours? Lily glanced at her father, as if checking for permission to answer such a frivolous question. It's okay, Nora said gently. You can tell me. Pink. Lily's voice was barely above a whisper. Like flowers. Pink like flowers. That's beautiful. Nora smiled. Do you have a favorite flower? Lily started to answer, then stopped, looking at Vincent again. That habit, checking with him before speaking, made Nora's heart ache. You don't need permission to have favorites, sweetie. You can like whatever you want. Vincent's fork paused halfway to his mouth. His eyes met Nora's across the table, sharp and evaluating. Roses, Lily said a bit louder now. I saw them in a book once. They're pretty? They are pretty. Have you ever seen a real rose? Lily shook her head. Vincent cleared his throat. We have roses in the garden. But I'm not allowed in the garden. Lily said it matter-of-factly. It's not on my schedule. The silence that followed was deafening. Vincent's expression flickered, guilt, frustration, something Nora couldn't quite name. Well, Nora said carefully, maybe we can ask your father if we could visit the garden sometime. Just for a few minutes. Vincent's jaw was tight. Her schedule is carefully planned. I'm sure we could find 10 minutes. Nora kept her tone light but firm. Just to look at the flowers. It would be educational. Botany. She saw the challenge in Vincent's eyes. Saw him weighing the disruption against the argument. Finally he gave a curt nod. 10 minutes. After lessons tomorrow. Lily's face lit up. Really, Daddy? Really? It was a small victory. Tiny in the scope of everything wrong in this house. But Nora saw what it meant to Lily, saw hope flickering in those sad eyes. After dinner, Nora walked Lily upstairs to her room. It was another showcase of expensive perfection. White furniture, soft pink accents, everything coordinated and pristine. A bedroom designed by someone who'd never met the child who slept there. Time for bed, sweetheart. Lily climbed into her enormous bed, looking even smaller against the mountain of decorative pillows. Will you stay? Until I fall asleep? Of course. Nora settled into the chair beside the bed, another uncomfortable decorative piece. Do you want another story? Lily nodded eagerly. So Nora told her about Luna the star again, adding new details. About Luna's friends in the sky. About the little girl she watched over. About how sometimes the bravest thing you can do is shine your light, even when you're scared. Lily listened with rapt attention, her eyes growing heavy. When Nora finished, Lily's voice was drowsy. Miss Nora? Are you my light? Like Luna? Nora's throat tightened. She reached out and gently stroked Lily's hair. I think maybe we're lights for each other. What do you think? Lily smiled, already half asleep. I think that's nice. Nora stayed until Lily's breathing evened out, until she was sure the little girl was truly asleep. Then she sat there a while longer, looking at this child who had too much and not nearly enough. She thought about the cold staff, the rigid schedules, the formal dinner where father and daughter barely spoke. She thought about her tiny apartment with its broken heater and hand-me-down furniture, and how it had felt more like home than this mansion ever would. But Lily needed her. That much was clear. And Nora had promised to try. Even if trying meant fighting against every rule, every protocol, every cold, perfect surface in this beautiful hollow house. Even if it meant learning to navigate a world that didn't want her there. For Lily she'd try. Have you ever felt out of place somewhere? Like everyone around you was speaking a language you didn't understand? That's what it means to step outside your comfort zone. To show up for someone who needs you, even when everything tells you to leave. The next afternoon, true to his word, Vincent approved 10 minutes in the garden. Ms. Rodriguez had looked scandalized by the disruption to Lily's schedule, but she'd reluctantly released her student. Nora took Lily's hand, noticing how naturally the little girl reached for her now, and they walked through the French doors that led to the grounds. The garden was spectacular. Professionally maintained, of course. Winding paths through beds of flowers, sculpted hedges, a fountain that probably cost more than a car. Beautiful and perfect and utterly untouchable. But Lily didn't care about perfection. Her eyes were wide with wonder. There's so many. She pulled Nora toward the rose beds, her steps quickening. Look at all the colors. They spent their 10 minutes, which Nora stretched to 15, crouched among the roses. Nora taught Lily how to cup a bloom gently in her hands to smell it without damaging the petals. How to look for bees and butterflies. How to notice the tiny differences between varieties. Lily absorbed everything like a sponge, asking questions that had nothing to do with educational outcomes and everything to do with simple curiosity. Why are some roses red and some yellow? What makes them smell so good? Can we pick one? The last question made Nora pause. The gardens were clearly meant to be looked at, not touched. But Lily's hopeful expression made her decision easy. Just one. A small one. Nora helped Lily carefully snip a pink rosebud, her favorite color, with the small pruning shears she'd found on a tool bench. We'll put it in water in your room. Lily held the rose like it was made of glass, her face glowing with joy that had nothing to do with expensive things and everything to do with simple permission to touch, to smell, to experience. When they walked back inside, Mrs. Sterling was waiting with a disapproving expression. Miss Bennet, the gardens are maintained by professional staff. We don't. We picked one flower. Nora kept her voice pleasant but firm. I'll take full responsibility if Mr. Chen has an issue with it. She wouldn't let them diminish this moment. Wouldn't let anyone tell Lily that joy was inappropriate or against protocol. That evening, after Lily's lessons finally ended, Nora suggested something radical. Free time. What's free time? Lily asked, genuinely confused. Time to do whatever you want. Play. Draw. Just be. But I have violin practice. Not tonight. Nora had already cleared it, or rather declared it, with the music instructor. Tonight we're going to do something different. She'd spent the afternoon setting up Lily's room differently. Pushed the furniture back to create space. Brought up art supplies from the study. Pulled out building blocks she'd found in a closet, still in their original packaging. Lily stood in her doorway, staring at the transformation. What is all this? This is a play space. Nora sat down on the floor, patting the carpet beside her. Come on. Let's build something. For the first few minutes, Lily was hesitant. She'd sit down, reach for a block, then pause, looking around as if waiting for someone to tell her she was doing it wrong. There's no wrong way to play, sweetheart. Nora started building a simple tower. You just do what feels fun. Slowly, tentatively, Lily began to build. Her movements were careful at first, controlled. But gradually, as no one appeared to scold her for being too loud or making a mess, she relaxed. They built towers and castles and structures that made no architectural sense but made Lily laugh. Real laughter, the kind that came from the belly and couldn't be contained. At one point, their tower collapsed in a spectacular crash. Lily froze, eyes wide with fear. Oh, Nora said, grinning. Earthquake. Should we build it back up or make something new? Lily stared at her, then at the scattered blocks. You're not mad? Mad. It's blocks. They're supposed to fall down sometimes. That's part of the fun. Something shifted in Lily's expression. Like a door opening. A rule being rewritten. She could make mistakes, make messes, and no one would punish her for it. Let's make a castle. Lily dove back into the blocks with new energy. With a dragon. Do we have a dragon? They didn't, so Nora drew one on paper and Lily colored it with crayons. The drawing was messy, chaotic, completely imperfect. And beautiful. They played for over an hour. By the time Mrs. Sterling appeared to announce bedtime, Lily's hair was mussed, there were crayon marks on her hands, and her smile was brilliant. Time to clean up. Mrs. Sterling's disapproving tone couldn't dampen the moment. We'll clean up tomorrow. Nora stood, brushing off her jeans. Right now it's story time. The mess should be addressed immediately. Tomorrow. Nora's tone left no room for argument. Lily needs sleep more than she needs a pristine room. After Mrs. Sterling left, radiating disapproval, Nora helped Lily get ready for bed. As she tucked her in, Lily grabbed her hand. Miss Nora? Can I ask you something? Anything. Why did my mommy leave? The question landed like a blow. Nora had known it would come eventually, but she still wasn't prepared for the raw pain in Lily's voice. She sat on the edge of the bed, choosing her words carefully. Your mommy didn't want to leave, sweetheart. She loved you so much. But sometimes people get very sick and even doctors can't make them better. Did I make her sick? Oh, Lily. No. Nora pulled the little girl into a gentle hug. You didn't do anything wrong. Your mommy loved you before you were even born. She wanted to meet you so badly. Then why won't Daddy talk about her? The question revealed so much. About Vincent's grief, about the silence that filled this house, about a child trying to understand loss that adults couldn't explain. Your daddy misses her very much. Sometimes when people are very sad, they don't know how to talk about it. It's not because of you. It's because his heart hurts and he doesn't know how to share that hurt. But you miss her too? Lily nodded, tears spilling over. I don't even remember her. Nora's chest ached. That's okay. You know what? I think your mommy lives in all the good things about you. Your kindness. Your curiosity. The way you smile when you see something beautiful. Those are all gifts from her. Really? Really. Nora wiped Lily's tears gently. And I bet she's watching over you right now, so proud of the amazing girl you're becoming. Lily was quiet for a long moment. Miss Nora? Do you think you could tell me about her sometime? Whatever Daddy tells you. I'll do my best. But maybe you should ask him too. I think he'd like to remember her with you. Lily looked doubtful but nodded. As she settled into sleep, she whispered one more thing. I wish you were my mommy. The words pierced straight through Nora's heart. She didn't know what to say. Didn't know how to explain that she was temporary, that this arrangement had an expiration date, that she couldn't be what Lily needed her to be. So she just stroked Lily's hair and hummed softly until the little girl drifted off. Outside Lily's room, Nora leaned against the wall and let herself feel the weight of what she'd taken on. This wasn't just a job. It wasn't even just about helping a lonely child. It was about navigating grief and loss and a family that had forgotten how to be a family. And Nora had no idea if she was strong enough to carry that weight. But for Lily she'd try. Vincent stood in the hallway outside Lily's room, one hand pressed against the wall, the other covering his mouth. He'd come upstairs to say goodnight, a promise he'd made to himself after the restaurant incident. But he'd heard voices and paused, not wanting to interrupt. And then he'd heard his daughter ask why her mother had left. The question he'd been dreading for 6 years. The question he'd avoided by never talking about Grace at all, by pretending she'd never existed, by building walls so thick that grief couldn't penetrate them. But those walls hadn't protected Lily. They'd just left her alone with questions no child should have to face by themselves. Vincent had listened to Nora's gentle explanation, her patience, her wisdom. The way she'd validated Lily's feelings without overwhelming her. The way she talked about Grace like a presence still felt, not a ghost to be feared. And then Lily had said it. "I wish you were my mommy." Vincent had felt something crack inside his chest. Something that had been frozen for 2 years, slowly thawing in painful increments. His daughter wanted a mother so badly she'd adopted a stranger in less than a week. Because the stranger showed up, paid attention, treated her like she mattered. All the things Vincent had failed to do. He waited until he heard Nora's footsteps moving away, then slipped into a nearby room before she could see him. He didn't want to explain why he was lurking in hallways, why he couldn't even say goodnight to his own daughter without eavesdropping first. The truth was he was afraid. Afraid of getting it wrong. Afraid of seeing Grace in Lily's eyes and breaking down. Afraid that if he let himself feel anything, everything would come flooding out and drown him. So he watched from a distance. Through security monitors. From doorways. Through reports from tutors and nannies who saw his daughter more than he did. And he watched Nora Bennett transform his household in less than a week. She didn't follow protocols. Didn't respect the carefully constructed schedules. She let Lily make messes and ask questions and be loud. She colored with her on the floor. Picked flowers from the garden. Let her stay up 15 minutes past bedtime to finish a story. Small rebellions. Tiny acts of defiance against the rigid structure Vincent had built. And Lily was thriving. Vincent saw it in her face. The way she smiled more. Laughed more. Ran through hallways instead of walking carefully. She was still quiet around him. Still uncertain, still checking for permission. But with Nora she was becoming something he'd almost forgotten she could be. A child. A real, messy, joyful, complicated child. The morning after the garden incident, Vincent found his mother in his study. She'd let herself in again, settling into his chair like she owned the place. "She's good with Lily." Vincent didn't pretend not to know who she was talking about. "Yes. Better than anyone else you've hired." "Yes." Eleanor studied him with those sharp eyes that had always seen too much. "So why do you look so miserable about it?" Vincent moved to the window, unable to meet her gaze. "Because I should be the one making her smile like that. I should be the one she runs to. I should be the father you haven't learned how to be yet." Eleanor's voice was gentle but firm. "So learn from her." From the waitress? From the woman who knows how to love someone without making it complicated. Eleanor stood, joining him at the window. "You think love requires perfection. That you have to have all the answers, all the control. But love is messy, Vincent. It's showing up even when you don't know what to do. It's trying and failing and trying again. I don't know how." "Then watch her. Learn. Stop standing in hallways like a ghost in your own home and actually be present." After his mother left, Vincent thought about her words. Watch her. Learn. So that evening he came home early. Really early, before Lily's dinner time, before the sun had set. Mrs. Sterling looked shocked to see him. "Is Lily in her lessons?" "Miss Bennett took her to the park, sir." Mrs. Sterling's tone carried clear disapproval. Without prior authorization. Something hot and immediate flared in Vincent's chest. "The park? With what security?" "The usual detail." "But sir, this is highly irregular. Miss Bennett has been making numerous unauthorized changes to Lily's schedule." "Where? Which park?" "The public one. 3 blocks from here." Vincent was moving before Mrs. Sterling finished speaking, grabbing his keys, his mind already spiraling. Public park. Anyone could be there. Paparazzi. Kidnappers. His daughter exposed, vulnerable. But when he arrived at the park, out of breath and ready to drag them both back to safety, he found something he didn't expect. Lily was on a swing, pumping her legs, her laughter carrying across the playground. Nora stood behind her, giving gentle pushes, smiling in a way that transformed her tired face into something luminous. Security was there, 2 bodyguards maintaining discreet distance. Other children played nearby. Normal families on a normal afternoon at a normal park. And his daughter was happier than he'd seen her in 2 years. Vincent stayed back, hidden behind a tree, and just watched. Watched Lily jump off the swing and run to the slide. Watched Nora follow, ready to catch her if she fell but letting her climb alone. Watched his daughter interact with other children, awkwardly at first, then with growing confidence. "Higher, Miss Nora," Lily called from the swing. "Push me higher. Hold on tight." Nora gave a bigger push and Lily squealed with delight. Vincent felt something painful twist in his chest. When was the last time he'd taken Lily to a park? Had he ever? He'd been so focused on giving her the best education, the finest tutors, every advantage money could buy. But he'd never taught her how to swing. Never heard that particular brand of laughter that came from simple, free joy. A little boy approached Lily at the slide. Vincent tensed, ready to intervene. But Lily smiled at the boy and they started talking, comparing whose turn was next, negotiating with the earnest gravity children bring to such things. Normal. Completely, beautifully normal. Nora noticed him eventually. Her smile faded slightly, not with fear but with something like resignation. Like she'd been waiting for him to show up and ruin this. Vincent stepped out from behind the tree and walked over. The bodyguard straightened, ready for orders. "Mr. Chin." Nora's voice was carefully neutral. "We were just having fun." Vincent heard how stiff his voice sounded. "I can see that." Lily spotted him and froze, her joy evaporating. "Daddy?" Her voice was small. "Are you mad?" The question gutted him. That his presence immediately brought fear. That his daughter's first instinct was to wonder if she was in trouble. No. Vincent forced himself to soften his expression, his tone. "Not mad. I came to see what you were doing. Playing." Lily glanced at Nora, seeking reassurance. "Is that okay?" Vincent looked at his daughter, grass stains on her dress, hair messy from wind and movement, cheeks flushed with exercise. She looked alive. "Real. It's okay." He managed a small smile. "It looks like fun." Lily's face brightened cautiously. "Do you want to play too?" The invitation hung between them. Vincent's instinct was to decline, to cite work or calls or the million excuses he always used. But Nora was watching him with those steady eyes, and his mother's words echoed in his head. "Show up." He cleared his throat. "I don't really know how to play." Lily's expression was heartbreakingly understanding. "That's okay. I didn't know either until Miss Nora taught me." She reached out and took his hand, her small fingers wrapping around his, and pulled him toward the swings. "You just sit and hold on, Daddy. Then someone pushes you and you go really high." Vincent looked helplessly at Nora, who just smiled and shrugged. "Go ahead. The swings are surprisingly therapeutic." So Vincent Chin, billionaire CEO, master of the universe, man who controlled empires, sat on a children's swing and let his 6-year-old daughter push him. Awkwardly. Barely moving. But trying. And when Lily laughed, pure, delighted laughter at the sight of her serious father on a swing, Vincent felt something he hadn't felt in 2 years. Joy. Real, uncomplicated joy at making his daughter happy. They stayed at the park for an hour. Vincent mostly watched, but he tried. He went down the slide once, feeling ridiculous. He pushed Lily on the swing, learning the rhythm from Nora's patient instruction. He even helped her climb the jungle gym, his heart in his throat with every step she took. It was terrifying. Letting her climb knowing she could fall. Letting her interact with other children knowing they could be mean. Letting her exist in the world without total control. But Nora stayed close, ready to catch but not hovering. Teaching him through example how to protect without smothering. On the walk home, Lily held both their hands. Vincent's on one side, Nora's on the other. She chattered about the park, about the little boy she'd played with, about wanting to come back tomorrow. Vincent listened, really listened, and tried to remember when he'd stopped hearing his daughter's voice. That evening he did something unprecedented. He joined them for Lily's bedtime routine. Nora looked surprised when he appeared in Lily's doorway, but she made space, settling into the chair while he sat on the edge of the bed. "Story time," Lily announced. "Miss Nora tells the best stories." "She does?" Vincent looked at Nora, who smiled slightly. "Would you like to hear tonight's story? It's about a king who forgot how to smile." Vincent's throat tightened. He nodded, not trusting his voice. Nora told the story, something she was clearly making up as she went, about a king in a dark castle who'd lost something precious and forgotten how to find joy. The king had a daughter, a princess, who loved him but didn't know how to reach him through his walls. It was painfully obvious who the story was really about. But then Nora introduced a new character, a traveling storyteller who came to the castle and reminded the king and princess that they didn't need to be perfect. They just needed to try. Slowly in the story, the king learned to leave his dark castle, to play with his daughter, to smile again. It wasn't easy. He made mistakes. But the princess was patient, and the storyteller was kind, and eventually the castle wasn't so dark anymore. Lily was asleep before the end, but Vincent listened to every word. When Nora finished, she looked at him with those knowing eyes. She needs you to try, she said quietly. Not be perfect. Just try. Vincent couldn't speak, could barely breathe around the emotion clogging his throat. So he just nodded. Later, standing in the hallway after leaving Lily's room, Vincent finally found his voice. Thank you. For today. For all of it. Nora studied him for a long moment. She's a wonderful kid, Mr. Chin. She just needs to know her father sees that too. I do. Vincent's voice was rough. I just don't know how to show it. You're learning. Nora's expression softened. I saw you at the park. On that swing. That wasn't easy for you. It was terrifying. I know. She smiled slightly. But you did it anyway. That matters. They stood in the quiet hallway, and Vincent realized something had shifted between them. She wasn't just the help anymore. Wasn't just a problem solver he'd hired. She was the person helping him find his way back to his daughter. And maybe, in some ways, back to himself. What would you do if you realized you'd been doing everything wrong? If the life you'd built was beautiful but empty? Would you have the courage to change? Or would you keep hiding behind your walls, telling yourself it's enough? Change is terrifying. But sometimes, the scariest thing is realizing that if we don't change, we'll lose everything that actually matters. Vincent's business partner, Derek Walsh, noticed the change immediately. They were in a board meeting. Vincent had actually left on time for the first time in months. Derek watched Vincent check his phone and smile slightly at a photo that flashed on the screen before he pocketed it. Everything all right? Derek's voice carried an edge of concern that didn't match his calculating eyes. Fine. Vincent refocused on the presentation. Continue. But Derek was good at reading people. He'd built his career on identifying weaknesses and exploiting them. And Vincent Chin, previously laser-focused, borderline obsessive about work, was showing cracks. After the meeting, Derek cornered Vincent in his office. You've been leaving early a lot lately. I have a daughter. Vincent didn't look up from his computer. I'm trying to spend more time with her. Noble. Derek settled into a chair uninvited. But the board is noticing. Questions are being raised about your commitment. My commitment to this company is unwavering. Is it? Because you missed the Tokyo meeting last week. Delegated the Singapore merger to your VP. Turned down 3 networking dinners. Derek leaned forward. People are starting to wonder if Vincent Chen is losing his edge. The insinuation hit its mark. Vincent's jaw tightened. My performance speaks for itself. Your past performance, yes. But leadership isn't just about what you've done. It's about what you're doing now. Derek's tone was sympathetic, but his eyes were cold. I'm on your side, Vincent. I'm just telling you what others are saying. After Derek left, Vincent sat in his office and felt the familiar pull of work. The way it demanded everything. The way it had always been enough before. But then his phone buzzed with a text from Nora. Picture attached, Lily at the piano laughing at something off camera. The message read, she wrote a song about flowers today. Want to hear it tonight? Vincent stared at the photo for a long moment, then typed back. Yes. But Derek's words stayed with him. Losing his edge. Questions about commitment. He'd spent 6 years building his reputation as the CEO who never blinked, never wavered, never let personal life interfere with business. And now he was leaving meetings early to hear his daughter's improvised piano songs? The doubt crept in. Maybe he was making a mistake. Maybe trying to balance both was just another way of failing at everything. Meanwhile, at the Chin estate, Nora was fighting her own battles. The staff had started gossiping. She'd hear conversations end abruptly when she entered rooms. Feel eyes on her back. The head housekeeper, Mrs. Sterling, became increasingly cold, questioning every decision Nora made. Miss Bennett, Mr. Chin has very specific expectations for Lily's care. And those expectations are being met. Nora kept her voice level. Lily is thriving. Lily is becoming undisciplined. Mrs. Sterling's disapproval was clear. She speaks out of turn now. Runs in the hallways. Questions her tutor's instructions. She's 6. She's supposed to question things. That's how children learn. Mr. Chin hired professionals to educate his daughter. Not a waitress to undo years of proper training. The word waitress landed like a slap. Nora felt heat rise in her chest but forced herself to stay calm. I'm not undoing anything. I'm just reminding her she's allowed to be a child. But the gossip spread. Helena, Lily's former head nanny who'd been reassigned to other duties, was particularly venomous. She's not even qualified, Nora overheard her telling the chef. No education degree. No childcare training. Just some girl off the street who batted her eyes at Mr. Chin. The implication was clear. And ugly. Nora tried to ignore it. Tried to focus on Lily who was blooming under the attention. But the constant judgment wore her down. Made her question herself in quiet moments. Was she really helping? Or was she just disrupting a system that, however flawed, had been working? One evening, exhausted and doubting, Nora called her father. Hey Norbert. Thomas's voice was weaker than last week. How's the fancy life? Complicated. Nora settled on her bed, phone pressed to her ear. I don't think I belong here, Dad. Why not? She explained the gossip, the staff's coldness, the feeling of being constantly judged. Everyone here thinks I'm some kind of gold digger. That I'm not good enough to be around their precious Lily. And what does Lily think? The question stopped her. Lily thinks. Nora smiled despite herself. Lily thinks I hung the moon. Then that's all that matters. Her father coughed, that terrible wet sound. People in fancy houses don't know everything, sweetheart. They know money and status. But you know something more important. What's that? How to love someone without making it transactional. Thomas's breathing was labored, but his conviction was strong. You're there for that little girl. Not for what you can get. That's rare. Don't let anyone make you forget it. After hanging up, Nora felt steadier. Her father was right. Lily was what mattered. Not Mrs. Sterling's disapproval or Helena's venom or the whispers that followed her through marble hallways. But the doubt had taken root. And doubt, once planted, is hard to uproot. At the end of that week, Derek made his move. He called an informal gathering of board members. Technically not a meeting, just drinks and conversation. But the topic was clear: Vincent Chen's recent behavior. I'm worried about him, Derek said, swirling expensive scotch. He's not himself. Distracted. Making emotional decisions instead of strategic ones. He's going through something personal, one board member offered. His daughter. Exactly. Derek leaned forward. I'm not saying Vincent isn't a brilliant CEO. He built this company. But brilliant people can still make mistakes when their judgment is compromised. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we keep a close eye on things. Make sure personal issues don't start affecting our bottom line. Derek's tone was reasonable, concerned. We owe it to our shareholders. Our employees. To Vincent himself, really. Seeds planted. Doubt spread. By the time the evening ended, Derek had successfully positioned himself as the voice of reason, protecting the company from its potentially compromised founder. Vincent didn't know about the gathering. Didn't know Derek was systematically undermining him with the very board he'd handpicked. He was too busy having dinner with his daughter, listening to her tell him about the butterfly they'd seen in the garden, trying to remember how to be present. But the storm was building. And neither Vincent nor Nora saw it coming. What happens when doing the right thing makes everyone think you're wrong? When the people around you can't see what you see, can't understand why you're changing. Do you keep going anyway? Or do you let their doubt become yours? Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is trust ourselves when no one else does. Even when it's lonely. Even when it's hard. The invitation arrived on embossed cardstock, hand-delivered by Vincent's assistant. The Chin Industries annual charity gala, the social event of the season. 3 weeks away. Vincent looked up from his desk where Nora stood, having been summoned for what he'd called a discussion about an upcoming event. I need you and Lily there. Vincent's tone was businesslike, but Nora caught the tension in his shoulders. It's important for the company. For appearances. Appearances. Nora felt something cold settle in her stomach. What kind of appearances? The board wants to see that I'm balanced. That family and work aren't in conflict. Vincent looked uncomfortable. Derek has been raising concerns. This would put them to rest. So we're props. Nora kept her voice neutral. For a photo op. That's not. Vincent stopped, reconsidered. It's more complicated than that. Is it? Or are you asking us to pretend we're something we're not so your board feels better? Vincent's expression hardened. I'm asking you to attend an event with Lily. As part of your job. Is that a problem? The words stung more than they should have. As part of your job. A reminder that this was transactional. That despite the late-night story times and the tentative connection forming between them, she was still just an employee. Oh, no problem. Nora's throat felt tight. When is it? Vincent gave her the details, then added, there will be formal attire. My assistant will arrange something appropriate. Another reminder. Your clothes aren't good enough. You don't fit in our world. After leaving Vincent's office, Nora found Lily in the garden, examining a ladybug with intense concentration. Miss Nora. Look how red it is. Nora knelt beside her, grateful for the simple joy of a child discovering insects. Hey sweetheart. I need to tell you something. She explained the gala, carefully trying not to transmit her own anxiety. But Lily's face fell immediately. I have to go? To a fancy party? Your dad needs us there. Just for a few hours. But those parties are so boring. And everyone stares at me like I'm supposed to do tricks. The resignation in Lily's voice broke Nora's heart. A 6-year-old who already understood she was a performance, not a person. I'll be right there with you. The whole time. Nora squeezed Lily's hand. We'll make it an adventure, okay? But even as she said it, Nora felt dread building. The weeks leading up to the gala were tense. Vincent worked longer hours, the pressure from Derek and the board increasing. His brief period of coming home early ended. Of joining them for dinner. He was slipping back into old patterns, and Nora could see the disappointment in Lily's eyes each evening when her father didn't appear. Are you mad at Daddy? Lily asked one night during story time. No, sweetheart. He's just very busy with work. He's always busy with work. Nora had no answer that wouldn't betray her own growing frustration. Vincent was trying, yes. But at the first sign of pressure, he'd retreated back into the safety of his office, leaving Lily and Nora behind. The day of the gala arrived with a flurry of preparation. Hair and makeup people descended on the estate. A dress was delivered for Nora, beautiful, expensive, and utterly unlike anything she'd ever worn. Silk and elegance that cost more than she used to make in 6 months. Lily's dress was even more elaborate. Pink tulle and crystals like something a princess would wear. But when Nora helped her into it, Lily looked miserable. It's too tight. The collar scratched her neck. And I can't move my arms. We just have to wear them for a few hours. Nora adjusted the dress, but there was no making it comfortable. It wasn't designed for comfort. It was designed to look perfect. They arrived at the hotel ballroom in Vincent's car. A sleek, expensive thing with leather seats and a driver who didn't speak. Vincent was already there, having gone early to greet major donors. The ballroom was overwhelming. Crystal chandeliers. Orchestra playing soft classical music. Women in gowns that cost more than cars. Men in tuxedos that fit like second skins. And everyone, stared when Nora and Lily entered. Nora felt the weight of those stares. The assessment. The judgment. She didn't belong here and everyone knew it. Lily gripped her hand tightly, practically hiding behind her. It's okay, Nora whispered. Stay close to me. They found Vincent near the center of the room, surrounded by important-looking people. He saw them and his expression flickered. Relief, maybe, or anxiety. Lily. Nora. Vincent's voice was formal, distant. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming? Like they were business associates, not the people he'd lived with for the past month. A photographer appeared immediately. Mr. Chin, can we get some family photos? Family. The word hung in the air, awkward and presumptuous. Vincent positioned them, Lily between him and Nora, his hand on Lily's shoulder. Nora kept some distance, unsure where she fit in this tableau. Closer, please. The photographer gestured. You look like strangers. They moved closer. Lily reached for Nora's hand instinctively, and Nora took it, offering what comfort she could. Beautiful. The photographer snapped several shots. You look like a perfect family. Vincent tensed. Nora felt it, the subtle withdrawal, the way his posture shifted. And when the photographer reached for Nora's hand to position it on Vincent's arm, Vincent stepped away slightly. The rejection was small. Barely noticeable to anyone watching. But Nora felt it like a slap. She understood in that moment exactly what she was to him. Useful. Necessary even. But not equal. Not someone he wanted to be associated with in front of his peers. The evening deteriorated from there. A parade of wealthy socialites cooed over Lily like she was a doll in a museum. Is she speaking yet? One woman asked as if Lily weren't standing right there. She's 6. She speaks 3 languages. Nora couldn't keep the edge from her voice. The woman looked at her like she just noticed a stain on the carpet. And who are you exactly? Nora hesitated. What was she? Nanny? Companion? Employee? She's Lily's companion. Vincent appeared beside them, his tone dismissive. Excuse us, we need to greet some other guests. He guided Lily away, leaving Nora standing alone. She watched them move through the crowd, Vincent introducing Lily to board members, donors, people who mattered. Lily looked small and uncomfortable, but she performed beautifully. Shook hands. Smiled politely. Was everything her father wanted her to be. And Nora stood apart, watching, feeling more invisible by the minute. Derek Walsh found her near the bar. You must be the famous Nora Bennett. She turned to face him, tall, handsome, smile that didn't reach his eyes. And you are? Derek Walsh. Vincent's business partner. He extended a hand, which Nora shook reluctantly. I've heard interesting things about you. The way he said interesting made it sound like an accusation. You're quite the disruptor, Derek continued, sipping his drink. Changed Vincent's whole approach to parenting in just a few weeks. Impressive. I'm just trying to help Lily. Of course. Derek's smile was predatory. Though I have to wonder if you're also helping yourself. Nice gig you've landed. From waitress to live-in companion in a billionaire's mansion. That's quite the upgrade. The insinuation was clear. Nora felt heat rise in her face. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. Derek's tone was pleasant, but his eyes were cold. Just making an observation. Vincent has been distracted lately. Making emotional decisions. I'd hate to see him taken advantage of. Before Nora could respond, a commotion drew their attention. Lily had spilled juice on her elaborate dress. The stain spread across pink tulle and Lily looked horrified. I'm sorry. Her small voice carried across the suddenly quiet space. I didn't mean to. Vincent's face was a mask of controlled frustration. It's fine, Lily. We'll clean it up. But Helena, Lily's former nanny, present as part of the household staff, appeared with a napkin and started scrubbing at the stain roughly. You need to be more careful, Lily. This dress cost thousands of dollars. Lily's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Nora crossed the room in seconds, pushing past important people, not caring about protocol. She knelt beside Lily, gently taking the napkin from Helena's hands. It's just a dress, sweetheart. Accidents happen. Helena's expression was ice. She needs to learn to be more careful in public. She's 6 years old. Nora stood, putting herself between Helena and Lily. And she's been standing here for 2 hours being poked and prodded and treated like a show pony. A spilled drink is not the end of the world. The room had gone silent. Everyone was watching now. Vincent stood frozen, clearly torn between supporting Nora and maintaining appearances. Miss Bennett, perhaps you should, Vincent started. Perhaps I should take Lily somewhere she can breathe. Nora didn't wait for permission. She took Lily's hand and walked toward the hallway that led to the restrooms. Behind them she heard the whispers start. The judgment. The confirmation of every awful thing they'd thought about the waitress who'd somehow infiltrated their world. In the hallway, away from prying eyes, Lily finally broke down. I ruined everything. No, baby. You didn't ruin anything. Nora knelt down, wiping Lily's tears. Those people in there? They care more about expensive dresses than they do about you. That's their problem, not yours. But Daddy will be mad. Your daddy should be mad at them for treating you like a decoration instead of a person. Nora's voice was fierce. You did nothing wrong. Then why do I always feel wrong? The question destroyed Nora. Because this little girl, kind, curious, bright, had been taught to believe she was only valuable when she was perfect. When she performed correctly. When she didn't make mistakes or spill things or be human. You're not wrong, Lily. You're perfect exactly as you are. Then why does everyone look at me like I'm a problem to solve? Nora had no answer. Because Lily was right. Everyone, Vincent included, treated her like a problem. Like something that needed fixing, managing, controlling. Vincent found them 10 minutes later. The gala was ending, guests filtering out, the evening winding down. Are you ready to go? His voice was tight. Controlled. But Nora could see the anger beneath it. We're ready. The car ride home was silent. Tense. Lily fell asleep against Nora's shoulder, exhausted by the evening and her tears. Vincent stared out the window, jaw clenched. Only when they got home after Lily was in bed, did Vincent finally speak. That was inappropriate. They were in the hallway outside Lily's room. Nora had just finished tucking her in, reading her a story to settle her anxiety. What was inappropriate? Defending her when your staff was being cruel? Helena was trying to help. Helena was humiliating her. In front of all those people. And you just stood there. Vincent's expression hardened. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The expectations. That gala was important for your image. You're bored. Your business partner who spent all evening telling me I'm a gold digger taking advantage of you. Vincent looked genuinely surprised. Derek said that? Not in those words. But the message was clear. Nora felt exhaustion crash over her. I'm staff, Vincent. That's what tonight made clear. I'm useful when I'm keeping Lily quiet and making her smile. But when it actually matters, when you need to choose between supporting her or maintaining appearances, you choose appearances every time. That's not fair, isn't it? Nora's voice broke slightly. That photographer called us a family. And you couldn't get away from me fast enough. The accusation hung between them. Vincent opened his mouth, then closed it, no defense coming. Because Nora was right. In that moment, when it had mattered, he'd chosen his image over the woman who'd helped him reconnect with his daughter. I thought. Nora trailed off, then forced herself to continue. I thought maybe this was becoming something real. That we were helping Lily build something that mattered. But tonight showed me the truth. Which is, that I'm temporary. Convenient. Someone you hired to solve that I'm temporary. Convenient. Someone you hired to solve a problem. And the minute it becomes uncomfortable or complicated, you'll drop me just like you dropped your wife's memory. Just like you've been dropping Lily her whole life. The words were cruel. Nora knew it even as she said them. But the hurt from tonight, the humiliation, the rejection, the realization that she'd let herself care about people who saw her as hired help, made her lash out. Vincent's face went pale, then flushed with anger. You don't know anything about my wife. About what I've been through. You're right. I don't. Because you've never told me. You've never told Lily. You just locked it all away and pretended grief doesn't exist if you ignore it hard enough. How dare you? How dare I what? Care about your daughter? Try to help her heal from the damage you've done by being emotionally absent for 6 years? Nora was crying now, hot tears of frustration and hurt. That little girl in there asked me tonight why everyone looks at her like she's a problem. 6 years old, Vincent. And she already knows she's only valued when she's perfect. I'm doing my best. Your best isn't enough. Nora's voice rose, then dropped, conscious of Lily sleeping nearby. Your best is showing up for 2 weeks, then disappearing the minute your business partner raises concerns. Your best is bringing us to that gala to be props in your perfect life, then abandoning us the minute it got uncomfortable. I didn't abandon. You stood there while they treated your daughter like a performing seal. While they treated me like an interloper. And you said nothing. Did nothing. Because God forbid Vincent Chen cause a scene or prioritize his family over your image. Vincent's jaw worked. She could see him struggling, the careful control he'd built over years warring with emotions he didn't know how to express. I don't know how to do this. His voice came out raw. I don't know how to be what she needs. What you? Then figure it out. Nora wiped her tears angrily. Because that little girl deserves a father who's brave enough to try. Not one who hires other people to feel for him. She turned and walked to her room, closing the door behind her with a quiet click that somehow felt louder than slamming it. Inside, Nora collapsed on her bed and let herself cry. For Lily. For herself. For the fantasy she'd let herself believe, that this broken family could somehow become whole, that she could be part of something that mattered. She'd been fooling herself. Vincent Chen's world wasn't hers. Would never be hers. She was the help. The hired emotional labor. The temporary fix to a permanent problem. And the worst part? She'd started to care. About Lily, yes, but also, dangerously, stupidly, about Vincent. About the man she'd glimpsed beneath the armor. The father trying to find his way back to his daughter. The widower still drowning in grief he couldn't voice. She'd let herself believe he might see her as more than an employee. More than a solution to a problem. But tonight had made everything clear. She was useful. Nothing more. In the hallway, Vincent stood outside Nora's door, one hand raised to knock. But he couldn't make himself do it. Couldn't make himself face the truth she'd thrown at him. Because she was right. About all of it. He'd stood there tonight while his former nanny had humiliated Lily. Had watched Nora defend his daughter while he worried about what the board would think. Had flinched away from being seen as too close to the woman who'd brought light back into his daughter's life. He was a coward. Hiding behind business and control and the walls he'd built after Grace died. And now he was losing Nora. Could feel her slipping away, her faith in him crumbling. Maybe that was for the best. Maybe she deserved better than a man who couldn't even defend the people he... Vincent stopped that thought before it could form completely. Before he had to acknowledge what he'd been feeling. The way his chest tightened when Nora smiled. The way coming home had started to feel different. The way she'd made him want to be better. He lowered his hand and walked away from her door. Back to his office. Back to work. Back to the place where he knew the rules and could maintain control. Because caring, really caring, meant risking loss. And Vincent Chin had already lost everything that mattered once. He couldn't survive it again. A problem. And the minute it becomes uncomfortable or complicated, You'll drop me just like you dropped your wife's memory. Just like you've been dropping Lily her whole life. The words were cruel. Nora knew it even as she said them. But the hurt from tonight, the humiliation, the rejection, the realization that she'd let herself care about people who saw her as hired help, made her lash out. Vincent's face went pale, then flushed with anger. You don't know anything about my wife. About what I've been through. You're right. I don't. Because you've never told me. You've never told Lily. You just locked it all away and pretended grief doesn't exist if you ignore it hard enough. How dare you? How dare I what? Care about your daughter? Try to help her heal from the damage you've done by being emotionally absent for 6 years? Nora was crying now, hot tears of frustration and hurt. That little girl in there asked me tonight why everyone looks at her like she's a problem. 6 years old, Vincent. And she already knows she's only valued when she's perfect. I'm doing my best. Your best isn't enough. Nora's voice rose, then dropped, conscious of Lily sleeping nearby. Your best is showing up for 2 weeks, then disappearing the minute your business partner raises concerns. Your best is bringing us to that gala to be props in your perfect life, then abandoning us the minute it got uncomfortable. I didn't abandon. You stood there while they treated your daughter like a performing seal. While they treated me like an interloper. And you said nothing. Did nothing. Because God forbid Vincent Chen cause a scene or prioritize his family over his image. Vincent's jaw worked. She could see him struggling, the careful control he'd built over years warring with emotions he didn't know how to express. I don't know how to do this. His voice came out raw. I don't know how to be what she needs. What you? Then figure it out. Nora wiped her tears angrily. Because that little girl deserves a father who's brave enough to try. Not one who hires other people to feel for him. She turned and walked to her room, closing the door behind her with a quiet click that somehow felt louder than slamming it. Inside, Nora collapsed on her bed and let herself cry. For Lily. For herself. For the fantasy she'd let herself believe, that this broken family could somehow become whole, that she could be part of something that mattered. She'd been fooling herself. Vincent Chen's world wasn't hers. Would never be hers. She was the help. The hired emotional labor. The temporary fix to a permanent problem. And the worst part? She'd started to care. About Lily, yes, but also, dangerously, stupidly, about Vincent. About the man she'd glimpsed beneath the armor. The father trying to find his way back to his daughter. The widower still drowning in grief he couldn't voice. She'd let herself believe he might see her as more than an employee. More than a solution to a problem. But tonight had made everything clear. She was useful. Nothing more. In the hallway, Vincent stood outside Nora's door, one hand raised to knock. But he couldn't make himself do it. Couldn't make himself face the truth she'd thrown at him. Because she was right. About all of it. He'd stood there tonight while his former nanny had humiliated Lily. Had watched Nora defend his daughter while he worried about what the board would think. Had flinched away from being seen as too close to the woman who'd brought light back into his daughter's life. He was a coward. Hiding behind business and control and the walls he'd built after Grace died. And now he was losing Nora. Could feel her slipping away, her faith in him crumbling. Maybe that was for the best. Maybe she deserved better than a man who couldn't even defend the people he... Vincent stopped that thought before it could form completely. Before he had to acknowledge what he'd been feeling. The way his chest tightened when Nora smiled. The way coming home had started to feel different. The way she'd made him want to be better. He lowered his hand and walked away from her door. Back to his office. Back to work. Back to the place where he knew the rules and could maintain control. Because caring, really caring, meant risking loss. And Vincent Chen had already lost everything that mattered once. He couldn't survive it again. Even if it meant losing the chance at something real. Something that could save them all. Have you ever wanted something you knew you couldn't have? Stood at the edge of change and stepped back because the risk felt too great? Sometimes the saddest distance isn't miles, it's the space between what we want and what we allow ourselves to reach for. Vincent didn't go home that night. Couldn't face the empty mansion, the ghost of his failures haunting every hallway. Instead, he drove to his office and sat in the dark, staring at the city lights sprawled below like fallen stars. Sleep was impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Lily's face at the gala, small and frightened and trying so hard to be perfect. He saw Nora's tears. Heard her voice accusing him of the one thing he'd sworn he'd never be, absent. Just like his father had been. The man who'd walked out and never looked back, leaving Vincent and his mother to survive in poverty and shame. Vincent had built an empire to prove he was nothing like that man. had made billions to ensure his family would never know hunger or fear or the crushing weight of being invisible to the world. But in running from his father's abandonment, he'd created his own version of it. Present in body but absent in every way that mattered. Providing everything except the one thing Lily actually needed. Him. The realization sat in his chest like a stone. Heavy. Undeniable. Suffocating. He stood and walked to the cabinet where he kept personal items locked away. Things he couldn't bear to look at but couldn't bring himself to destroy. His hands shook slightly as he unlocked it and pulled out the framed photo he'd hidden there 2 years ago. Grace. Is Grace. Laughing at something off camera, her hand resting on her swollen belly. 8 months pregnant. 3 weeks before she died. Vincent set the photo on his desk and sank into his chair, staring at the woman he'd loved and lost and couldn't let go of. I'm failing her. His voice cracked in the empty office. I'm failing our daughter Grace. I don't know how to do this without you. The photo stared back, frozen in a moment of joy Vincent could barely remember feeling. You would be so disappointed in me? Vincent's throat burned. You'd see exactly what I've become. Exactly what I've done to Lily. And you'd hate me for it. But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't true. Grace had been fierce and loving and uncompromising in her belief that people could change. Could grow. Could become better versions of themselves if they were brave enough to try. She wouldn't hate him. She'd challenge him. The way Nora had. The comparison startled him. He'd been so careful not to think about Nora in those terms, not to compare her to Grace, not to acknowledge the way his chest tightened when she smiled or how coming home had started to mean something again because she was there. But the truth was unavoidable now. Somewhere in the chaos of the past weeks, Nora Bennett had become more than just the woman he'd hired to fix his broken family. She'd become someone he needed. Someone who made him want to be better. Someone he was terrified of losing. Vincent touched Grace's photo gently, his fingers tracing the outline of her face. I think I'm falling in love with her. The admission felt like betrayal and relief in equal measure. And I don't know if that means I'm moving on or just replacing you. I don't know if it's okay to feel this way. If you'd understand. The photo offered no answers. Just Grace's frozen smile and the weight of a future that had been stolen from them both. But maybe that was the point. Grace was gone. Had been gone for 6 years. And no amount of guilt or hiding or building walls would bring her back. The only question that mattered now was, what was he going to do with the life he still had? Morning came without Vincent noticing. The city brightened outside his window and his phone started buzzing with messages. Meetings, calls, the endless demands of running an empire. He ignored them all. Instead he grabbed his keys and drove home. Really home, not just to sleep or change clothes. Home to face what he'd been running from. The mansion was quiet when he entered. Staff moved through hallways with their usual efficiency, but something felt different. Warmer somehow. Like the house had learned how to breathe in his absence. He found Nora in the kitchen, an unprecedented sight. She was teaching Lily how to make French toast, both of them covered in flour and egg, laughing at some private joke. The chef stood off to the side looking scandalized, but neither Nora nor Lily seemed to notice or care. Vincent stood in the doorway watching them. His daughter, happy, messy, free. And the woman who'd made that possible, who'd fought for Lily when he'd been too afraid to try. Nora saw him first. Her laughter died, replaced by wariness. Lily turned and froze, her small face closing off in that way that broke Vincent's heart. Daddy. Her voice was careful. Neutral. When did you get home? Just now. Vincent stepped into the kitchen, feeling like an intruder in his own house. Can we talk? Lily looked at Nora, seeking permission or reassurance or escape. Nora touched her shoulder gently. Why don't you go wash up, sweetheart? Your dad and I need to talk for a minute. But, it's okay. Nora smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. We'll finish the French toast after, I promise. After Lily left, reluctantly, casting worried glances back, silence filled the kitchen. The chef made himself scarce, sensing the tension. Vincent and Nora stood on opposite sides of the kitchen island. Miles of marble and hurt between them. You came back. Nora's voice was flat. I said I would. You say a lot of things, Vincent. Nora crossed her arms. Doesn't mean they happen. The words stung because they were true. Vincent forced himself not to retreat into defensiveness. Not to hide behind the walls that had protected him for so long. I'm sorry. The words felt inadequate, too small for the damage he'd done. For leaving after the gala. For making Lily think she'd done something wrong. For making you think you don't matter. Nora's expression flickered. Don't I? Matter, I mean? Vincent took a breath. This was it, the moment where he either pushed through his fear or lost everything that had started to matter. You terrify me. His voice was raw. You make me feel things I swore I'd never feel again. You challenge me and see through me and refuse to let me hide. And I don't know how to handle that. So you run. So I run. Vincent's hands gripped the counter. Because it's easier than admitting I'm falling apart. That I've been falling apart for 6 years and just got really good at pretending I'm fine. Nora's arms loosened slightly. You're not fine. I'm not fine. The admission felt like stepping off a cliff. I'm broken and scared and I have no idea how to be the father Lily deserves. How to be the man you... He stopped, the words catching in his throat. The man I what? Nora's voice was softer now. Vincent met her eyes. Saw the hurt there but also something else. Something that looked like hope. The man you might want. If I can figure out how to stop being a coward. How to choose the people I love over the fear of losing them. The confession hung between them. Vulnerable. Honest. Everything Vincent had been too afraid to say. Nora's eyes filled with tears. I can't do this if you're going to keep running, Vincent. I can't watch Lily's heart break every time you disappear. I can't watch my own heart break. I know. Vincent moved around the island, closing the distance between them. I'm not asking you to trust me. Not yet. I'm just asking for a chance to prove I can change. That I can be present. That I can choose this, choose you and Lily even when it's hard. Nora searched his face. What changed? 3 days ago you walked away. What's different now? I remembered something Grace used to say. Vincent's voice was thick with emotion. She'd tell me that fear was just love that hadn't learned to be brave yet. And I realized I've been so afraid of losing people that I never really let myself have them. He reached out tentatively and when Nora didn't pull away he took her hand. I'm tired of being afraid. Tired of choosing walls over connection. Tired of missing my daughter's life because I'm too broken to show up. Nora's fingers tightened around his. This isn't going to be easy. Changing patterns, learning to be vulnerable, actually doing the work instead of just hiring people to do it for you. I know. And Lily comes first. Always. No matter what happens between us, she has to come first. I know that too. Vincent pulled Nora closer. She's the reason I'm here. She's the reason I'm trying. But Nora shook her head slightly. No. You have to do this for yourself too. Not just for her. Not just for me. For yourself. Because you deserve to be whole. The words cracked something open in Vincent's chest. He couldn't remember the last time someone had told him he deserved anything beyond success and wealth and the empire he'd built. Nora reached up and touched his face gently. I see you, Vincent Chin. Not the CEO. Not the billionaire. Not the mask you show the world. I see the man who's been drowning in grief and guilt and fear. And I think he's worth saving. Vincent's control shattered. He pulled Nora into his arms and held her like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to the world. She held him back and for the first time in years, Vincent let himself break. Not alone in an office. Not hidden behind closed doors. But here in this woman's arms, letting her see all the broken pieces he'd been hiding. And she didn't run. Didn't judge. Just held him and let him fall apart. Because that's what love did. It caught you when you fell. 3 days later something shifted. Vincent came home for dinner. Then the next night. Then the next. He started joining Lily's bedtime routine, reading stories in his stiff, uncertain way that made Lily giggle. It wasn't perfect. He still checked his phone too much. Still struggled with being present without trying to control everything. But he was trying. Really trying. And slowly, carefully, Lily began to trust him again. That Saturday Vincent did something unprecedented. He took the entire day off. No meetings. No calls. Just time with Lily and Nora. They decided to visit the park, the same one Nora and Lily had been going to for weeks. But this time Vincent came too. Bodyguards maintained their distance, giving the illusion of normalcy. The morning was perfect. Sunny but not too hot, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of cut grass and flowers. Lily wore play clothes, jeans and a t-shirt instead of expensive dresses, and her hair was in a simple ponytail. She looked like a regular kid. And for once, Vincent let her be one. They played on the swings. Built sandcastles in the sandbox. Vincent even went down the slide, his expensive watch glinting in the sunlight, his carefully styled hair getting messed up. And he didn't care. Nora watched them together, father and daughter learning how to play, how to be, and felt something warm bloom in her chest. Hope. Real, tangible hope that this broken family might actually heal. Lily was giggling at Vincent's attempts to build a sand tower that kept collapsing when she suddenly jumped up. Miss Nora. There's a butterfly. Can I go see it? The butterfly had landed on a flower bed near the edge of the playground. Maybe 20 feet away. Still within the fenced area, still safe. Stay where we can see you, sweetheart. Nora smiled. And be gentle. I will. Lily took off running, her small legs pumping, her laughter trailing behind her. Vincent watched her go with that mixture of pride and terror that Nora had learned meant he was actually present. Actually paying attention. She's getting so fast, he said quietly. When did that happen? While you were hiding in your office, Nora teased gently. Vincent looked at her, and his expression was soft. Grateful. I'm glad I'm here now. I'm glad you didn't give up on me. Nora took his hand. I'm glad you came back. They were watching Lily crouch near the flowers, trying to coax the butterfly onto her finger, when everything changed. A maintenance vehicle was backing up nearby, routine groundskeeping for the park. The driver's view was blocked by equipment. His backup alarm was beeping, but it was a sound that blended into the background noise of the playground. Lily, focused entirely on the butterfly, didn't hear it. Didn't see it backing toward her. Didn't realize the danger. But Nora did. Time seemed to slow. Nora saw the vehicle, saw Lily in its path, saw the distance between where she stood and where Lily was. Too far. Too far to reach her in time. Lily. Nora was running before the scream finished leaving her throat. Vincent turned, saw what was happening, and his heart stopped. Nora reached Lily half a second before the vehicle would have. She grabbed the little girl and threw them both sideways out of the path. They hit the ground hard. Nora twisted her body at the last second, taking the impact, protecting Lily with her own body. The vehicle stopped, the driver finally seeing them, his face going white with horror. Vincent reached them in seconds, his hands shaking so violently he could barely touch them. Lily? Lily? His voice was raw panic. Lily was crying, scared and confused, but moving. Nora had taken the worst of it. She was conscious but dazed, her head bleeding from where it had struck the ground. I'm okay, Lily sobbed. Miss Nora saved me. Miss Nora. An ambulance was called. Bodyguards surrounded them, securing the area, already on phones coordinating logistics. The park cleared as parents gathered their children, whispering and staring. Vincent held Lily with one arm and Nora with the other, unable to let either of them go. His face was ashen, his breathing ragged. You saved her. He kept repeating it like he couldn't quite believe it. You saved her. Nora tried to smile but winced. Of course I did. The ambulance arrived. Paramedics assessed them both. Lily was fine, shaken but uninjured. Nora had a concussion and possible fractured wrist from the impact. They rode to the hospital together. Vincent refused to let go of Nora's hand the entire time, even when the paramedics needed to examine her. At the hospital, chaos. Private room immediately arranged. Best doctors consulted. Vincent's assistant appeared, coordinating everything with military precision. But Vincent barely noticed. He sat beside Nora's bed while doctors examined her, holding Lily on his lap, both of them staring at the woman who'd thrown herself in front of a vehicle without hesitation. Why did you do that? Lily asked in a small voice. You could have gotten really hurt. Nora reached out with her good hand and touched Lily's face. Because protecting you is more important than protecting me. But what if you had died? The question, asked with the blunt honesty only children possess, hung in the air. Nora glanced at Vincent and saw the same question in his eyes. The same terror. Because they'd both just realized how close they'd come to losing someone who mattered more than either of them had admitted. I didn't die, Nora said gently. I'm right here. But the fear remained. In Vincent's white-knuckled grip on her hand. In the way Lily refused to leave her side. In the understanding that life was fragile and precious and could be stolen in a heartbeat. The doctor finally delivered the verdict. Minor concussion, badly bruised wrist but no fracture, some cuts and bruises that would heal. You were very lucky, the doctor said. A few inches either way and this could have been much worse. After the doctor left, Vincent stood at the window, his back to them, his shoulders rigid with tension. Nora could see him shaking. Vincent? He didn't turn. Didn't speak. Lily had finally fallen asleep in the chair beside Nora's bed, exhausted by fear and adrenaline. Nora waited until she was sure Lily was deeply asleep before speaking again. Come here. Vincent turned. His face was devastated. Tears tracked down his cheeks, the first time Nora had seen him cry. I almost lost you both. His voice broke. I almost lost everything that matters. But you didn't. Nora held out her good hand. We're okay. All of us. Vincent crossed the room and knelt beside her bed, pressing his face against her hand. I can't do this. I can't survive losing someone else. I can't. You won't. Nora's voice was fierce despite her exhaustion. Because I'm not going anywhere. Because we're going to be careful. Because life is scary and unpredictable, but that doesn't mean we stop living it. Vincent looked up at her and his expression was raw. Open. Every wall demolished by terror and relief. I love you. The words tumbled out like confession. I love you and it terrifies me and I don't know how to do this, but I can't pretend anymore. I can't keep hiding from this. Nora's throat tightened. Even now. When I'm bruised and bloody and probably look like hell. Especially now. Vincent touched her face gently, carefully avoiding the bandages. Because you literally threw yourself in front of a vehicle to save my daughter. Because you're brave when I'm a coward. Because you see me and you still stayed. Nora pulled him up so she could kiss him. Gentle because everything hurt, but fierce because some things couldn't wait. I love you too, she whispered against his lips. And we're going to figure this out. Together. This time Vincent believed her. Lily woke up in the hospital room to find her father asleep in the chair beside Miss Nora's bed. His hand still holding Nora's, his head resting on the mattress like he'd been keeping vigil. For a moment Lily just watched them. Her daddy, who never slept anywhere but his perfectly made bed. And Miss Nora, with bandages and bruises but still smiling even in sleep. They looked like they belonged together. Like the picture Lily had drawn and torn up weeks ago. Miss Nora's eyes opened slowly, finding Lily immediately. Hey sweetheart. How are you feeling? I'm okay. Lily climbed carefully onto the bed, mindful of Nora's injuries. Does it hurt? A little. But I've had worse. When I was about your age I fell out of a tree. Nora smiled at the memory. Broke my arm. My dad was so scared. But he sat with me in the hospital just like this, holding my hand, telling me stories until I fell asleep. Did you cry? So much? Nora laughed softly. I was terrified. But having him there made it better. Lily looked at Vincent, still sleeping, his face peaceful in a way she rarely saw. He stayed all night? He wouldn't leave. Not even when the nurses tried to kick him out. Something warm bloomed in Lily's chest. He was here. Really here. Not in his office or on a business trip or hiding behind work. Just here, present, refusing to leave. Miss Nora? Can I ask you something? Anything. Are you going to stay? Lily's voice was small. Now that you got hurt saving me, are you going to leave? Nora's expression softened. Oh, sweetheart. Come here. She pulled Lily close, carefully because everything still hurt, and held her tight. I'm not leaving. Getting hurt doesn't change how much I care about you. If anything, it proves how much you matter to me. But what if Daddy makes you leave? Like before? Your daddy's not going to make me leave. Nora glanced at Vincent's sleeping face. I think we're all figuring out how to be a family now. A real family. And families don't give up on each other just because things get hard. Like in the stories you tell me? Exactly like that. Sometimes the princess has to fight dragons. Sometimes the king has to remember how to love. Sometimes the storyteller gets a little bruised along the way. But in the end, if everyone's brave enough, everyone gets their happy ending. Lily settled against Nora's side, being careful of her injuries. I was so scared. When I saw that truck coming and you pushed me, I thought you were going to die. I know. But I didn't. And you're safe. That's all that matters. Vincent stirred, waking slowly. His eyes opened and immediately found Lily and Nora together on the bed. For a moment he just looked at them, his daughter and the woman he loved, and felt something profound settle in his chest. This was what mattered. Not empires or board meetings or billion-dollar deals. This moment. This family. Good morning. His voice was rough from sleep. Morning, Daddy. Lily smiled at him. You stayed all night. I did. Vincent sat up, stretching stiff muscles. I wasn't going anywhere. Miss Nora says we're going to be a real family now. Vincent's eyes met Nora's over Lily's head. She did she? I did. Nora's expression was soft. If that's okay with you. Vincent reached out and took Nora's hand again. More than okay. The days that followed were strange and gentle. Nora was released from the hospital with strict instructions to rest. Vincent insisted she stay in the main house, in a suite near his room, not the staff quarters. Mrs. Sterling looked like she might protest, but one look at Vincent's face silenced her. Lily became Nora's devoted nurse, bringing her water and books and terrible drawings that Nora treasured. Vincent worked from home, setting up his laptop in Nora's room so he could be nearby. It wasn't efficient. It wasn't professional. But it was real. One evening, after Lily had finally gone to bed, Vincent and Nora sat together in her room. She was in the sitting area, her injured wrist propped on pillows, Vincent beside her on the couch. Can I tell you about Grace? Vincent asked quietly. Nora turned to him, surprised but ready. Please. So Vincent talked. For the first time in 6 years he talked about his wife. About how they'd met. A business conference where she'd challenged one of his presentations and he'd been simultaneously infuriated and fascinated. About their whirlwind romance, the wedding his mother had insisted on despite his protests that they should just elope. About the joy of her pregnancy and the terror of her labor. About holding Lily for the first time while Grace's heart stopped in another room. She made me promise to give Lily everything. Vincent's voice was thick, and I thought I knew what that meant. Money, security, opportunities. I didn't realize she meant love, presence, the kind of everything that actually matters. You were grieving. Nora touched his face. You did the best you could. My best wasn't enough. Vincent looked at her. But then you came along and showed me what enough actually looks like. You saved my daughter twice, once from that vehicle and once from me. You're being too hard on yourself. Am I? Vincent's expression was raw. I let my grief turn me into exactly what I swore I'd never be. Absent. Distant. More concerned with providing than protecting. But you changed. Nora leaned into him carefully. That's what matters. Not that you were broken, but that you chose to heal. Vincent pulled her close, mindful of her injuries. I don't know how to do this. How to be vulnerable. How to let people in. How to love without being terrified of loss. None of us do. Nora smiled. We just figure it out as we go. Together. Together. Vincent tested the word. It still felt foreign. Dangerous. But also right in a way nothing else had in years. He looked at Nora, bruised and bandaged and beautiful, and realized something profound. Grace had taught him how to love. But Nora was teaching him how to live again. And maybe that was okay. Maybe loving two women across different seasons of his life didn't mean betraying either of them. Maybe it just meant he'd been lucky enough to be loved twice. I want this to work, he said quietly. I want us to be a family. A real one. Not just an arrangement or a business deal. Nora's eyes filled with tears. I want that too. But I'm going to mess up. I'm going to slip back into old patterns. I'm going to check my phone during dinner and miss things and be emotionally unavailable sometimes. I know. Nora took his hand. And I'm going to call you out on it. I'm going to challenge you and push you and refuse to let you hide. And sometimes we're going to fight about it. Vincent smiled slightly. That sounds exhausting. It sounds like a real relationship. Nora squeezed his hand. Are you ready for that? Vincent thought about it. About the work it would require. The vulnerability. The constant choice to show up even when it was hard. Everything in him still wanted to run, to hide behind walls and work in the comfortable numbness he'd cultivated. But then he thought about Lily's smile. About Nora's courage. About the family they could build if he was brave enough to try. I'm ready, he said. And this time he meant it. Vincent's phone had been buzzing all morning. Messages he kept ignoring, calls he let go to voicemail. But finally his assistant's message got through. Emergency board meeting. Derek called it. You need to be there. Vincent looked at Nora, who was sketching with Lily at the kitchen table, both of them covered in charcoal smudges and laughing. Everything in him wanted to stay. To tell the board to handle it without him. But years of conditioning were hard to break. I have to go to the office, he said quietly. Nora looked up and he saw the flash of disappointment before she masked it. Okay. We'll be here when you get back. It's just a meeting. Vincent crossed to them, kissing Lily's head, then Nora's lips. I'll be home for dinner. But as he drove to the office, dread settled in his stomach. Something about this felt wrong. He was right to worry. The boardroom was full when he arrived. Every member present, their faces serious. And at the head of the table where Vincent usually sat, was Derek Walsh. Vincent's jaw tightened. What's this about? Derek's smile was sympathetic but his eyes were cold. Vincent, thank you for coming. We need to discuss some concerns about your recent performance. My performance has been exemplary. Vincent remained standing. Chin Industries has posted record profits for the past 3 quarters. Financially, yes. Derek stood, pulling up a presentation. But leadership isn't just about money. It's about focus, dedication. And lately you've been distracted. The presentation flashed to life. Photos of Vincent leaving the office early. Charts showing decreased hours worked. Emails he'd delegated instead of handling personally. Reports from the gala about inappropriate behavior from his household staff. And there, a photo that made Vincent's blood run cold. Him and Nora at the hospital, her hand in his, Lily asleep in his arms. Private moment captured and weaponized. You've been investigating me? Vincent's voice was dangerous. We've been monitoring concerning behavior. Derek's tone was reasonable, which somehow made it worse. Vincent, you built this company with single-minded dedication. But ever since you hired that woman, Her name is Nora. You've become unreliable. Missing meetings. Turning down opportunities. Prioritizing your personal life over the company. As I should. Vincent looked around the table, seeing uncertainty in some faces, calculation in others. This company exists to provide for my family. What's the point of building an empire if I'm too busy to enjoy it? That's exactly what concerns us. Derek's eyes gleamed. You're making emotional decisions. Letting personal attachments cloud your judgment. The board needs leadership that's focused. Committed. Not distracted by. Say her name. Vincent's voice was steel. If you're going to attack her, at least have the courage to say her name. Derek's mask slipped slightly. This isn't about her. It's about you. About whether you're still capable of leading this company with the dedication it requires. And if I'm not? Vincent already knew where this was going. Then perhaps it's time to consider stepping back. Temporarily, of course. Derek's tone was conciliatory. Just until you sort out your personal situation. I'd be happy to serve as interim CEO. For the good of the company. There it was. The play Derek had been building toward for months. Turn Vincent's newfound humanity into weakness. Frame love as distraction. Force him to choose between the company he'd built and the family he'd found. The old Vincent would have caved. Would have sacrificed everything personal for the sake of business. Would have pushed Nora away to prove his dedication. But something had changed. Vincent looked at the board members, people he'd handpicked, mentored, made wealthy, and realized something profound. They didn't own him. The company didn't own him. He'd built it and he could walk away from it if he needed to. But he didn't need to. You're right, Vincent said quietly. I have changed. Derek's expression turned triumphant. I used to believe that success meant sacrifice. That being a good CEO meant working 18-hour days and missing everything that mattered. That love was weakness and vulnerability was failure. Vincent walked around the table slowly, making eye contact with each board member. But I was wrong. A company built on the sacrifice of everything human isn't an empire. It's a prison. And I refuse to be its prisoner anymore. He stopped beside Derek, his voice clear and unwavering. I'm not stepping down. I'm not apologizing for having a life outside these walls. And I'm certainly not handing my company over to someone whose greatest skill is manipulating other people's fear. Derek's face flushed. The board doesn't have confidence. The board works for me. Vincent's voice turned hard. I own controlling interest. You all seem to have forgotten that in your concern about my focus. He looked around the room again. So here's what's going to happen. I'm restructuring my role. Delegating more. Building a team that can function without me breathing down their necks every second. Because I have a daughter who needs her father. And a woman I love who's teaching me how to be human again. Vincent leaned forward, hands on the table. If any of you have a problem with that, there's the door. I'll happily buy out your shares. But I'm not sacrificing my family for your comfort ever again. Silence. Derek's mouth opened and closed, speechless. Then Mrs. Chen's voice came from the doorway. About time. Vincent turned to see his mother standing there, elegant and unimpressed. I own 15% of this company. She walked in, settling into a chair. And I vote with my son. Anyone else? One by one, board members raised their hands. Not all of them. A few sided with Derek, faces sour. But enough. More than enough. Derek stood abruptly. This isn't over. Yes, Vincent said calmly. It is. You're fired, by the way. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. Derek's face went red with rage, but Vincent had already turned away, dismissed him with the finality of someone who'd stopped being afraid. As Derek was escorted out, Vincent looked at his mother. What are you doing here? Eleanor smiled. Someone called me with concerns about your performance. I thought I'd come see for myself how my son was doing. She stood and walked over, taking his face in her hands. I'm proud of you. For the first time in years, you're actually living instead of just existing. Vincent's throat tightened. I'm trying. I know. And Grace would be proud too. Eleanor's eyes filled. She always wanted you to be happy. To choose love. She'd like Nora. You think so? I know so. Because Nora makes you better. And that's what love should do. After the meeting ended and the board members filed out, Vincent stood alone in the empty room. His phone buzzed. Nora checking if he was okay. He texted back, on my way home. For good this time. And for the first time in his adult life, Vincent Chen left work early without guilt, without second thoughts, without looking back. Because something more important was waiting for him at home. Vincent arrived home to chaos. Mrs. Sterling met him at the door, her usually composed face showing rare emotion. Mr. Chin, Miss Bennett and Miss Lily are having some difficulty. Where? The study, sir. Vincent found them there. Nora was packing her duffel bag, the same worn one she'd arrived with months ago. Lily was crying, clinging to Nora's legs. Please don't go. Lily's voice was desperate. I'll be better. I'll be perfect. Just please don't leave. Vincent's heart stopped. What's happening? Nora looked up and her eyes were red. Your assistant called. She said I was being let go. That the board decided my presence was detrimental to the company image. What? Vincent's fury was instant. I didn't authorize. Derek, Nora said quietly. Before you fired him, he sent the order through. I got the official termination email an hour ago. That's not. Vincent pulled out his phone, already typing to reverse the order. It's not valid. I'm reversing it right now. But Nora shook her head. Maybe it's for the best. No. Lily's cry was anguished. You promised you'd stay. Sweetheart. Nora tried to kneel down but Lily pulled away. You lied. Everyone lies. Lily's small body shook with sobs. You said you'd stay and now you're leaving just like everyone else. I'm not leaving because I want to. Nora's voice broke. I'm leaving because what? Vincent stepped forward. Because Derek sent a fraudulent termination? Because you're scared? Nora's eyes flashed. I'm not scared. I'm being realistic. Your board, your business partner, half your staff, they all want me gone. Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't belong in this world. So you're just going to give up? Vincent's voice rose. After everything? After teaching me how to fight for what matters? This isn't about giving up. It's about facing reality. Nora gestured around the study. Look at this place, Vincent. I'm a waitress from a studio apartment. You're a billionaire CEO. We were fooling ourselves thinking this could work. Lily's crying intensified. She ran past both of them and out of the room, her small footsteps echoing down the hallway. Lily. Nora started to follow, but Vincent caught her arm. Let me. His voice was gentler now. Please, let me talk to her. He found Lily in her room, under her bed, her old hiding spot from before Nora had come. The place she'd retreated to when the world felt too big and scary. Vincent knelt down beside the bed. Lily? Can I come under there with you? No answer. Just small, hiccuping sobs. I'm coming anyway. It's going to be tight. Vincent awkwardly crawled under the bed, expensive suit getting dusty, his large frame barely fitting in the small space. But he managed, lying on his side next to his daughter. Remember when you used to hide under here when you were smaller? You'd pretend it was a fort. A safe place. Lily didn't respond, but her crying quieted slightly. I never understood why you needed a safe place. Vincent's voice was soft. This whole house should have been safe. But I made it feel scary instead. Made you feel like you had to be perfect all the time. Like making mistakes meant you weren't good enough. You weren't here. Lily's voice was muffled. You were always gone. I know. And that was the biggest mistake I ever made. Vincent reached out and gently touched her shoulder. But I'm here now. And I'm not going anywhere. But Miss Nora is. Lily turned to face him, her small face devastated. She's packing. She's leaving. And it's my fault. It's not your fault, baby. It's mine. I let bad people make her feel like she didn't belong. But I'm going to fix it. Oh. Vincent was quiet for a moment. Then quietly, what if I told you that Miss Nora isn't just your companion? That she's someone I love? Someone I want to be part of our family forever? Lily's eyes went wide. Forever? If she'll stay. If you want her to. I want her to. Lily's voice was fierce. I want her to be my mommy. Real mommy. Not just Miss Nora who takes care of me. My actual mommy. Vincent's throat tightened. Grace had been Lily's mother. Would always be her mother. But he understood what Lily was asking for. Not a replacement but an addition. Someone to be present in the way Grace couldn't be anymore. Then we need to show her she belongs. That this is her home too. Vincent touched Lily's face gently. But I need your help. Can you be brave for me? Lily nodded, wiping her tears. What do we do? First we get out from under this bed. My back is killing me. Despite everything, Lily giggled. A small sound but real. They crawled out together, dusty and rumpled. Vincent picked Lily up, something he realized he hadn't done nearly enough, and carried her back to the study. Nora was still there, standing by her packed bag looking lost. Don't go. Lily's voice was small but determined. Please, Miss Nora. Don't go. Nora's resolve crumbled. She crossed to them, and Vincent set Lily down so she could wrap her arms around Nora's legs. I love you, Lily whispered. You saved me. You teach me things. You make Daddy smile. You make everything better. Please don't leave. Nora knelt down, tears streaming. Oh, sweetheart. I love you too. So much. Then why are you leaving? Because sometimes grown-ups get scared too. Nora wiped her eyes. Sometimes we think it's better to leave before we get hurt. Before we lose something we love. But that's silly. Lily's logic was beautifully simple. If you leave, you lose us anyway. She's right, Vincent said quietly. You're leaving to protect yourself from maybe getting hurt. But you're guaranteeing the hurt by going. Nora looked up at him. What if this doesn't work? What if your world and mine are just too different? Then we build a new world. Vincent knelt beside them. One where it doesn't matter where you came from or how much money you have. One where the only thing that matters is showing up for the people you love. He took Nora's hands. I fired Derek. Told the board I'm restructuring to spend more time with my family. Put my mother in charge of overseeing half my responsibilities. And I'm going to keep doing that, keep choosing this, choosing us, every single day. Vincent, I love you, Nora Bennett. I love your strength and your kindness and the way you see people. I love that you challenged me when everyone else was too afraid. I love that you saved my daughter twice. Once from a vehicle and once from a life without love. Nora was crying now, really crying. I don't have a ring yet. I don't have a perfect proposal planned. Vincent's voice shook. But I'm asking anyway. Will you stay? Will you be part of this family? Will you marry me? Lily gasped. Marry? He says yes. Vincent never took his eyes off Nora. If she's brave enough to take a chance on us. Nora looked at Lily's hopeful face. At Vincent's vulnerable expression. At the life they were offering her, complicated and imperfect and real. Yes. The word came out as a sob. Yes, I'll stay. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes to all of it. Lily threw herself at them and suddenly they were all hugging, crying and laughing and holding each other like they'd never let go. Does this mean you'll be my real mommy? Lily asked through her tears. Nora pulled back to look at her. Your real mommy will always be Grace. She gave you life and she loved you more than anything. But if you want, I can be your mommy too. The one who's here. Who reads you stories and helps you with homework and tells you to brush your teeth. I want that. Lily nodded fiercely. I want two mommies. One in heaven and one here. Then that's what you'll have. Nora kissed her forehead. And I promise, sweetheart, I'm never leaving. Not for boards or jobs or people who think I don't belong. This is my home now. You're my home. Vincent pulled them both close, his heart fuller than he'd thought possible. For years he'd believed that loving again meant betraying Grace. That opening his heart meant risking the same devastating loss. But now he understood. Love wasn't a finite resource. It didn't diminish by being shared. Grace would always be part of them, in Lily's smile, in the way Vincent had learned what mattered, in the foundation she'd laid. And Nora was building on that foundation. Creating something new without erasing what came before. A family. Broken pieces that somehow fit together into something whole. 3 days after the proposal, Nora still hadn't fully processed what had happened. She was engaged. To Vincent Chin. To the man who'd terrified her with his coldness and then melted that ice with unexpected warmth. She was going to be Lily's mother. Not just her companion or nanny or the person hired to fix things. Her actual mother. The reality felt too big to hold. Vincent found her in the garden, Lily's favorite place, which had become Nora's too. She was sitting among the roses, the ones they'd picked that first day together. You're thinking too much. Vincent settled beside her on the bench. I can see it. I'm thinking the right amount. Nora smiled slightly. This is huge, Vincent. Marriage. Becoming a mother. Permanently joining your world. Is that what worries you? My world? Part of it. Nora was quiet for a moment. I keep thinking about that gala. About how I didn't fit. About how everyone knew I didn't belong. They were wrong. Were they? Nora looked at him. I'm not educated like you. I don't know which fork to use at fancy dinners. I can't talk about stock markets or business strategies. I'm just exactly what we need. Vincent took her hands. Lily and I don't need someone who knows which fork to use. We need someone who knows how to love us. Who sees us as people, not images to maintain. But your world. My world is whatever I make it. Vincent's voice was firm. And I'm making it one where you belong. Where kindness matters more than pedigree. Where being real is more valuable than being perfect. Nora's eyes filled. What if I mess up? What if I embarrass you at some important event? Then you embarrass me. Vincent smiled. And I'll stand beside you anyway. Because you're worth more than 1,000 perfect appearances. He pulled her closer. I spent 6 years hiding. Being perfect. Maintaining control. And it made me miserable. You taught me that imperfection is where life actually happens. That messy and real beats polished and empty every time. When did you get so wise? Nora teased through her tears. I'm not wise. I'm just finally paying attention. Vincent cupped her face. Nora Bennett, you walked into a restaurant and saw a child crying. And instead of looking away like everyone else, you sat down and helped her. That's who you are. Someone who shows up. Someone who cares. Someone who makes the world better just by being in it. Stop, you're going to make me cry. Good. Vincent kissed her softly. I like you messy and emotional. It means you're real. Nora laughed and kissed him back, tasting salt from her own tears. I love you. Even when you're being impossibly romantic and making it hard to maintain my cynical worldview. I love you too. Even when you're overthinking and trying to talk yourself out of happiness. They sat in the garden as afternoon light painted everything gold. Inside the house, Lily was with Mrs. Sterling, who'd surprisingly warmed to Nora after Vincent's boardroom declaration. Apparently, standing up to Derek had earned him points with the staff who'd been too afraid to challenge him themselves. Can I tell you something? Nora said quietly. Anything. When I first came here, I thought I was just going to help Lily and then leave. Keep my heart safe. Not get attached. She smiled at her own naivety. But somewhere along the way you both became my family. And this cold mansion became my home. It's not cold anymore. Vincent looked at the house. You changed it. Made it feel alive. We changed it. Together. Nora squeezed his hand. You, me, and one very determined 6-year-old who refused to let us give up on each other. Speaking of which, Vincent pulled out his phone. I got an email from my lawyer. The adoption papers are ready whenever you are. Nora's breath caught. Adoption papers? For Lily. Once we're married, you can legally adopt her. If you want to. Vincent's expression was vulnerable. I know she has Grace's name. But I thought maybe she could have yours too. Grace Lily Chin Bennett. A piece of both her mothers. Nora couldn't speak around the lump in her throat. She'd never imagined being a mother. Had given up that dream when she dropped out of school to care for her father. But here it was, motherhood offered not as obligation but as gift. I want to. The words came out choked. I want all of it. Good. Vincent pulled her into his arms. Because we want you too. All of you. Your past, your dreams, your fears, your strength. Every messy, beautiful part. They stayed there as the sun set, painting the garden in shades of pink and gold. Inside, Lily pressed her face against the window, watching her father and Miss Nora, soon-to-be mom, holding each other in the roses. She smiled. A real, full, happy smile. Because finally, after 6 years of loneliness and confusion and wondering why she wasn't enough, Lily Chin understood something important. She was enough. She'd always been enough. She just needed someone brave enough to see it. And now she had 2 people who saw it. 2 people who loved her. 2 people who'd chosen each other and chosen her and built something real from broken pieces. A family. Messy and imperfect and absolutely perfect. The park was chaos. Beautiful, joyful, loud chaos. Lily's 7th birthday party was nothing like her previous birthdays. No formal venues, no catered meals for adults who barely spoke to the birthday girl, no expensive entertainment she was too nervous to enjoy. This was a real kids' party. At the public park where everything had changed. Balloons tied to trees. A homemade banner that said, Happy Birthday Lily, in crooked letters. A cake from the local bakery, chocolate with pink frosting because those were Lily's favorite colors. And children. So many children. Kids from Lily's new school, the regular, normal school Vincent had enrolled her in after firing most of her private tutors. Kids from the neighborhood. Loud, messy, wonderful children who ran and played and treated Lily like one of them. Because she was. Vincent stood near the picnic tables talking with other parents. Normal conversation about soccer practice and homework and the challenges of raising kids. He was wearing jeans. Actual jeans with a casual shirt that had gotten grass stains when Lily had tackled him earlier. Eleanor Chin watched her son from a bench, her eyes misty. He was laughing. Really laughing, the kind that came from deep in the chest and couldn't be faked. Nora appeared beside her, carrying paper plates. You're crying. Happy tears. Eleanor smiled. I never thought I'd see him like this. Free. He's still wound tight sometimes. Nora sat down. Still checks his phone too much. Still has moments where he reverts to CEO mode. But he catches himself now. Eleanor squeezed Nora's hand. Because you call him on it? Because you made him accountable. We made each other accountable. Nora watched Vincent lift Lily onto his shoulders, running around while she squealed with delight. I'm not perfect either. I still worry I don't fit in his world. Still feel like the waitress playing dress-up. His world is your world now. Eleanor's voice was gentle. And you've made it better. Warmer. More human. Lily ran over, flushed and happy. Mom. Did you see? I beat everyone at tag. Mom. The word still made Nora's heart skip. 6 months since the wedding, small ceremony, just family and close friends, and she still wasn't used to it. I saw. You're incredibly fast. Nora pulled Lily close. Having fun? The best birthday ever. Lily hugged her tight. Thank you for letting me have it here. At our park. Our park. Where Nora had first brought her to play. Where Vincent had first tried to be present. Where Nora had saved Lily's life and set everything in motion. Of course, sweetheart. This is your day. You get to celebrate however you want. Vincent joined them, slightly out of breath. She's too fast. I think she's part cheetah. You're just old, Daddy. Lily giggled. Oh, I'm 35. Ancient. Nora grinned. Practically decrepit. You're both fired. But Vincent was smiling. That real, unguarded smile that Nora had fought so hard to earn. He wrapped his arms around both of them, and for a moment, the chaos of the party faded. It was just the three of them. A family built from loneliness and loss and love that refused to quit. Time for cake. Eleanor called, and children swarmed the picnic tables. As Lily ran to join them, Vincent held Nora back for just a moment. Thank you. For what? For saving us. Vincent kissed her softly. For seeing who we could be and refusing to let us settle for less. You saved yourselves. I just reminded you how. No. Vincent's expression was serious. You did the hardest thing in the world. You loved us when we were broken. You stayed when it would have been easier to leave. You fought for us when we didn't know how to fight for ourselves. Nora's eyes filled. We fought for each other. Vincent pulled her close, and they watched Lily blow out her candles. 7 candles for 7 years. But only this year did she look like a child should look, joyful, carefree, surrounded by love. She made a wish, her small face scrunched in concentration. What did you wish for? Someone asked. Lily looked at Vincent and Nora, her smile brilliant. Nothing. I already have everything I wanted. She had a family. Not the one she'd been born into, but the one they'd chosen to build. A daddy who showed up. A mom who stayed. Love that wasn't perfect but was present. And really, what more could anyone wish for? Later, as the sun set and families started to leave, Lily sat between Vincent and Nora on a bench. Tired, happy, holding both their hands. This was the best day ever, she murmured, half asleep. The best day so far, Vincent corrected. There are going to be lots more. Promise? Promise. Nora kissed her head. We're not going anywhere. As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Nora thought about a story she'd told Lily once. About a lonely star named Luna who learned her light mattered even when she felt small. They'd all been lonely stars once. Vincent hiding behind walls and wealth. Lily drowning in a mansion full of everything except love. And Nora, working herself to exhaustion for a father dying despite her best efforts. 3 broken people who'd found each other at exactly the right moment. And together they'd learned something precious. That family isn't about blood or money or perfection. It's about showing up. Being present. Choosing love even when it's scary. It's about saving each other in all the small ways that matter. Vincent looked at Nora over Lily's head, and in his eyes she saw their whole story. The restaurant where they'd met. The walls that had crumbled. The fear they'd faced together. The love they'd chosen. Worth it? His expression asked. Nora smiled. Every single moment. Because sometimes the greatest love stories aren't the ones that start with passion. They're the ones that start with pain, with brokenness, with people who've forgotten how to hope. And then someone appears. Someone brave enough to see past the walls, strong enough to stay through the storms, kind enough to believe in second chances. Someone who reminds you that it's never too late to change. Never too late to choose love over fear. Never too late to become the person you were always meant to be. Lily Chin had everything now. Not because her father was wealthy but because she was loved. Really, truly loved by 2 people who'd learned how to show up. And in the end, that's all any child needs. All any of us need. To be seen. To be chosen. To be loved exactly as we are. The stars came out fully as they sat together. A father, a mother, a daughter, and the night sky held them gently. 3 lights shining together, bright enough to chase away any darkness. Bright enough to remind anyone watching that even in the loneliest moments, hope is possible. Change is possible. Love is possible. You just have to be brave enough to try. Asterisk, have you ever been brave enough to change? To let someone see your broken pieces and trust them to stay anyway? That's what real love looks like, not perfect but present. Not easy but worth every difficult moment. Asterisk. Asterisk, because at the end of the day, we all just need someone who sees us. Who stays. Who chooses us not despite our flaws but because our flaws make us human. Make us real. Make us worth loving. Asterisk. Asterisk, what would your life look like if you let yourself be seen? If you stopped hiding behind walls and let love in? Asterisk. Maybe it's time to find out.